Assalamu alaikum, everybody. I hope everybody is doing super well. And am I clearly audible? If anybody of you could kindly confirm so that we could directly jump into the course content without any wasting of time. I know that you all are really busy with your own preparation, but on behalf of the request of almost everybody out there, Assalamu alaikum, everybody. So yeah, on behalf of everybody who is saying that, sir, please conduct chapter 6 revision. Or why not go with it? Because a lot of you were complaining that chapter number 6, I don't know, for some reason seems to be very haunting to you all. So let me just open up the chat box. I know मैंने बंद किया हुआ था. I didn't want anybody to just spam stuff before I come in. The chat box will be now open and you guys could join in, talk with me. We can have the questions being discussed together. The first part of today's stream will be basically going through the chapter number 6 revision so that if anybody is only for the revision, you can sort of cover up the revision part. And once done with that, we're going to first do the topicals for chapter 6 and then we're going to do the topicals for chapter number 5, inshallah. That's the whole plan, that's the whole agenda. Walaikum assalam. And let's just jump into it, I say. Okay, so let me just start and open up my notes taking app. Sorry for the slight delay of 10 minutes. I was yesterday was a crazy day. I had to like literally answer all of your questions till like 2 or 3 a.m. and then after that I had to study a bit for my own, and then so yeah, low-key it was very crazy. So that would not be possible going through revision of 4, 5, 6. We're just gonna do revision of chapter number 6 today, because I don't want you guys to just go through stuff, right? For proper understanding, that would mean spending like more than an hour. So the community is full. Please make it known. We do have a third community group. I've sent the link. Can even reshare it? Just give me a second. So this third community group is for everybody who might want to join in, but was unable to join the first few groups. So let me just give me a second. Let me paste it up here. So yeah, I'm pasting the link in the chat. You guys can join in if anybody of you might want to be a part of our community. We share a lot of stuff there. Also, a lot of questions are being discussed. How long would be the stream? So the stream would be sort of like most probably 3 hours. You can expect it to go till 7:30. We're gonna have some small breaks too. So I don't know. Let's see how long it goes, inshallah. Walaikum assalam, everybody. Walaikum assalam. Let me just start screen sharing and Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. फिर कर लेते हैं. Okay. Screen capture. All right, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So you guys would be able to see the screen now. Welcome back to another and perhaps the last marathon class for today's paper number 1, inshallah. This session will be basically it's going to take you all through the entire chapter number 6. Just a few things before we jump into the content. I want every one of you to understand that please, the only questions I expect from you all at this point are related to the ones which we are studying. Any question out of scope and I will not be doing it. Okay. Yeah, let me. Okay, I've changed the internet. Anyone kindly confirm if you guys can hear me now? Yeah, I guess it's working fine now. So first and foremost, no questions out of the scope of what we are discussing. Any questions from any questions other than chapter number 6 would not be accommodated. Okay, so I would recommend that if please you guys sort of just ensure that we study the stuff which is relevant, that would be appreciated. Okay. Okay, perfect. Let's move on and jump into the course content then. So Bismillah Rahman Rahim. Let's start off. So we're going to study chapter number 6 first and foremost. The name of the chapter 6 is AI, Automated Systems, Robotics. These are the 3 main disciplines we're going to learn in this topic. And no, you cannot write the answers in points. It's better to go with paragraph. I've made a reel on this, guys. The stuff on which I've created the reels, don't sort of ask questions for those. It's sort of just wasting both my time and yours time. Follow up my Instagram page. I've covered everything there. Okay. All right, moving on. The first thing you need to understand is that when we talk about chapter number 6, the first keyword, the first wording, the first stuff that comes into our mind or should be discussed is automated system. No need to take the notes are available. Okay. So automated system is basically something which refers to a combination of software and hardware that carries out a specific task automatically with no or little human intervention, but it is monitored by a human. Now, a lot of you would be learning, okay, sir, isn't this definition very similar to that of an embedded system? No. An automated system, what it is that it takes some software part, it takes some hardware part, it creates something where it can do the things on its own. The person, the human, they are only there for the purpose of monitoring it. So we will not do anything. We're just going to sit like a boss. We're going to just see whether it does the work correctly or not. That thing is basically known as automated system. But a lot of people, when they start off with chapter 6, the moment they hear the word automated system, they confuse it with AI and machine learning. So you should know that AI machine learning is something different than your automated system. Okay, the way an automated system works is that we always have some sort of sensors. The sensors always provide some sort of data, maybe like something like it detects physical, environmental changes or whatever, right? And based upon that, it's going to send that data into my automated system. Inside my automated system, I have my microprocessor. Now this microprocessor is sort of my brain, where it processes all the inputs from the sensors, where it processes every data, where it takes the decision of what to do, what not to do. Guys, all these notes of mine are available on my what do we call it, website. You can check it out from there. Okay. So this microprocessor is my brain. It includes everything from my input, data, making decision, every capability which a computer brain needs to take. For instance, if I say that an automated system needs to work that turns on AC when the temperature is, let's say, greater than 50. So the temperature sensor up here is going to send readings again and again. It's going to send 45. It won't do anything. The moment it sends 52, it will be like, okay, it has increased than 50. So now I need to send a signal to turn on the AC. So the way automated system always works is that you have some sensors, those sensors send some data, then we have a microprocessor, that's my brain, that makes the decision, and based upon whatever decision it takes, and then commands the actuator to do something. We studied what an actuator is in chapter number 3, where we saw that an actuator is basically that specific type of output device that converts signals from the microprocessor into some mechanical force. So for instance, I might say that, okay, the moment temperature exceeds this thing, I want you to lift this item. So if you want to lift some item, that changing from an electrical signal into some sort of mechanical force, that is something done by my actuator. And we discussed this in great detail in chapter number 3 too. So it's the same chapter number 3, what do we call it, output device, where it's basically going to be, I'm lagging. Shouldn't be lagging though. I'm lagging. Just a second. Let me see. Okay, let me change a few settings. Just give me a minute. I hope the lag could improve afterwards. Yeah. The internet today is a bit weak. I don't know for what reason though, but yeah. सर आई एम टायर्ड ऑफ योर वॉइस. तो फिर रोहान क्लास लीव कर लो. किसी ने नहीं बोला आपको बैठने की. एंजॉय करो. All right, it's gonna improve hopefully now. Yeah, the voice is fine. I just want to see whether the camera is lagging or not. If it's not lagging, I might go with it. Otherwise, I have to restart it. All right, everybody, just let me know if it's any way better right now. Yeah, you're correct. It's basically thanks to the Sharks of Pakistan. You can ignore the camera, guys. You can ignore the camera. And ignore the camera. If the screen works fine, that's perfect. Okay, let me just check for a second. Yeah, I want to check it first. पहले सारा confirm हो जाए if it's working perfectly fine. फिर all right, let's move on. Let's continue with it. So yeah, back to the class content. So I was talking about automated system. Okay, so what's an automated system? It's basically a system which has an input in terms of sensors. Those sensors basically provides it some sort of data. The data goes into my microprocessor. The microprocessor, which is my brain, it processes that data, and based upon that, it takes a decision which is then executed using an actuator. Okay, so basically the actuator then converts that command of mine, the electrical signal, into some sort of mechanical force. So it converts it into a mechanical force that allows it to basically execute something, maybe lift something, maybe move something, maybe drag something, anything like maybe start the motors, maybe stop the wheels, maybe lift a piston or whatsoever. But eventually, if ever a question comes up to draw a diagram for an automated system for any example, you should have this in your mind that the diagram is going to be very similar to having sensors followed by microprocessor and then an actuator. So what are the advantages and disadvantages of having an automated system? Your chapter number 6 is heavily relied on discussing what the advantages and disadvantages are. Okay, so remember that advantages are basically, for an automated system, the main advantages are that it's very consistent and accurate, which means that because everything is very computerized, the chances of making an error are pretty low. For instance, if I have to drop something exactly at this point, as a human, if I might be drawing it, my hand might be shaking and it might fall down. But if it's like precise with the computer's one, it might drop it exactly at specific point, which might allow it to be perfectly passed through this hole, let's say. Okay, so we say that an automated system is pretty much very consistent and accurate. Secondly, the biggest benefit we get is that it's pretty much very efficient. When I say that it's efficient, this basically means that it could work consecutively without any sort of lag. Any sort of lag, which is a really big good thing for us, because as humans, we know that people usually work for how much time? They work from 9 to 5. 9 to 5. But if it's a robot can work literally from 12 a.m. to 12 a.m. again. So straightforward one entire day without any sort of breaks. That's a big benefit to us, and this improves our efficiency. Thirdly, an automated system is also pretty much good to go when we are making use of working in a place where we need safety. For instance, what if you're working in a nuclear plant? We know, right, in nuclear plant there are a lot of radiations. Those gamma rays are coming up, which can literally harm the person so badly. So like places where there is a great risk of radiation, what we can do is, why not create an automated system that can do some work for us, and it's going to be safe in that case. And at the same time, it's not going to harm us. But remember one thing: whenever we talk about an automated system, there is a human monitoring it. Okay, so that isn't discussed up here, but yeah, a human always monitors the process. So it's basically a human looking on to what's happening, whereas everything else is basically being done by the automated system. If it was an embedded system differs from an automated system in two ways. Firstly, an embedded system only does one task. An automated system can do multiple tasks. And secondly, an embedded system is not necessarily something which does the task on their own. A human might be doing it too. Whereas an automated system is the one where a human has to do nothing. Okay, he's just monitoring it. That's the main difference between them. Moving on, the fourth benefit is that it allows us to have really good data handling, which means that if I have to, like, let's say, gather the temperature every minute, if it was a human, the chances of making a deviation or an error, that's pretty high. Like, who the hell would be looking onto a thermometer for like the whole 24 hours, checking the temperature after every minute? But if it is a sensor, that sensor can monitor it every minute perfectly with exact precision, allowing us to have even really cool data handling. And lastly, it's cost saving in the longer run. Why is it cost saving? So for instance, I say that a robot costs me something like 10 lakh. Okay, And then I say that every worker at my company, I pay him 1 lakh rupees per month. Okay. Now, for instance, this robot could replace two workers. Okay, two workers. This means that every month it's saving me 2 lakh per month. Okay. And let's say the robot was of, let's say, 20 lakh. Let's even say 20 lakh. Okay. Now, if it was of 20 lakhs, this means that it's going to take me 10 months. And after 10 months, every month, I will not be required to pay for it, and I have recovered all the money which I have paid for it, which means that I'm saving money because I'm no longer going to be paying my workers. So in the longer run, by the longer run, I means like year wise, not like months or short term, but like let's say 5, 6, 7 years, it's going to be very cost saving for me because I will no longer be required to do any sort of payment to any sort of employees or whatsoever, right? So that's a really good benefit to us. However, at the same time, there are a lot of disadvantages too. The disadvantage number one, the biggest disadvantage is that it has a very high initial cost. When it has a high initial cost, this means that a lot of companies, they do not want to spend a lot of money. Like if, for instance, you might have a business and I say that there is a robot that is for 60 lakhs or like 6 million PKR. Now, there are a very few companies who would be willing to basically invest direct 6 millions because they would be like, okay, 6 millions could mean I could increase my workforce by like 10 times. You get the point, right? So a lot of people, due to the technology being new, they are reluctant from even investing this 60 lakh. That's one big problem. The second biggest disadvantage is which you're going to see in the entire chapter number 6 is that for tasks which are manual, if automated systems are taking over it, this means that there's going to be job loss in the repetitive manual tasks. For instance, all of my YouTube thumbnails and everything which you see on your screen right now, all this art and everything, you know what, this has been made by Chat GPT. Now the thing is, people used to hire graphic designers previously for all that stuff. Okay, so I might also hire, they might charge me, I don't know how much money, but why will I be paying a graphic designer when my Chat GPT Pro Go subscription does the same thing for me? Okay, so if it does the same thing for me, why will I be going it? But this means that it's resulting in a loss of jobs. It's resulting in loss of all that manual tasks. So either you specialize in something and you're basically going to do it, or if you do not specialize, in that case, tata bye bye, your work is being replaced. Likewise, there is a big problem that it's going to reduce the human skills. When I say it's going to reduce the human skills, by this I mean that if a person who was originally capable of, let's say, making art, okay, but now AI replaced a man for like 2 years, the person did not make any art at all, like no art at all. This means that basically your the skills which you had, those skills are lost. You are no longer that much capable to basically, what do we call it, you are not so much capable to ensure that you do that thing which I wanted to do. So yeah, so therefore this is also a drawback, that it can reduce the human skills. Moving on, the biggest disadvantage is that we have a lot of technical dependence. Like a lot of us are making use of AI. I don't know how much you guys might be using it, but like for a lot of us in university, AI has been a part of our lives at this point. Which means that if AI is being used everywhere, like even for writing normal text. Now, if someone asks me to write an email, I might draft it pretty well, but to still formalize it, I'm going to make use of AI, which the problem is I'm very technical dependent. The moment there is some sort of, let's say, like for instance, the internet fails or like there is some sort of internet disconnectivity, I might not be able to write the letter the way I was writing through AI. This means that I've basically become a lot of technically dependent upon it, which can basically cause a lot of problems if somehow the automated system fails someday. And the biggest disadvantage is that ethical risk, because it's all computer. We know, right, that what if I create a system? We have seen these AI systems where they are like very much biased. You tell them that you're someone like from Palestine, and all these YouTube or all these social media algorithms, they sort of they start to shadow you up. Why? They sort of bias. You tell them your gender, race, and it's going to start becoming biased for you. So all these ethical risks exist when talking about automated systems, because they are programmed by someone. So if the programmer who created that person, if he or she themselves were biased and they ensure that something is biased, then you can clearly see that if you ask ChatGPT to give some anti-US point of view, they might not be giving it. You ask it some anti-Russian point of view, and it's going to give you a long essay. That's the data biasness I'm saying. So even though it might be some AI automated system, but there's a great chance that it's going to be data bias on it. No, rest of chapter number 4 is not there. I haven't uploaded chapter number 4 videos at all. We are paying chat GPT 5K, but like let's say if I hire a graphic designer, that graphic designer might charge me like let's say 45K per month, 45,000, and he might only give me work in like 2 to 3 days. Whereas if I have a chat GPT model, which is like literally let's say 5 to 7,000, that's like 7K, and it can do unlimited work for me every time. So like literally I created this YouTube thumbnail yesterday today at 8:30 a.m. just from a single prompt from AI. So yeah, so you get the point, right? It's very much beneficial for me to make use of AI rather than going with some sort of a graphic designer. Moving on, now the main point, the main question up here, which a lot of people were again and again asking, sir, from where do we need to learn the examples? Like, do we even need to memorize all these examples in the book? Now, listen up, guys, listen up. All these applications, they are not to be memorized, However, the point of discussing all these application areas is to ensure that you understand how does an automated system work, so that in exam, whatever example they give you, you should understand how they're going to be inputs coming in, how those inputs are basically going to be processed through a microprocessor, and how will the decisions be taken up later on. That's the whole purpose of discussing all these examples. An annotate diagram may come up on anything. It's not necessary it's only going to come from from these examples. But the point here to understand is that how does an automated system work? So if you remember the example which I did, all of them follow one process. You have inputs which are from sensors. They go to the microprocessor, and then you have some sort of output in terms of actuators. And we're going to see how this model applies to everything up here. For instance, take this example of nuclear power system. We have inputs from the sensors. They go to a control system, which is my microprocessor or CPU. Then we have a supervisor sitting next to it, which is basically a human. Based upon whatever decision it makes up here, it's going to send commands to or signals to actuators, which are going to vary stuff. So like let's say the water pumps there was less water, so it needs to turn on water, right? So if this made a decision in order to turn on the valve, so what's it going to do is it's going to send the command to the actuator that okay, turn on the water pumps if the level is let's say greater than 1,000. Then similarly, if let's say the gas volume was pretty much low and it might want to increase the gas, what it could do is that the moment let's say gas sensor indicates that okay, there is low gas, it's going to make a decision and it's going to do everything on its own. So this whole system sort of works on its own. The only thing in an automated system is that we as humans supervise it. We look if something goes off the ground, something goes wrong, we can stop it at that point without something going out of the box, right? And what are the main advantages? Now again, these examples have a lot of advantages and disadvantages which are very relevant, but a lot of advantages and disadvantages are very general and repetitive. Memorize those general ones so that if it comes in exam, you can write the general one which works for everyone. So for instance, what are the main advantages? So it's much more faster, because if a human was to take a decision as to gas was low, he might take like an hour to even recognize that something is going off the ground. But an automated system, the moment he detects something using a sensor, is going to do it. Secondly, it's even way more safer because the person has to not go to any sort of gas valve or any point where they might need to open up the water pump. That might be dangerous, right? Then thirdly, the process will also be more likely to be run under optimum conditions, because any small change would be identified immediately, and the moment it's being identified, the action would be taken. And of course, in the longer run, it's going to be cheaper. Why is it going to be cheaper? Because I do not need to create or have a workforce that's going to work 24 hours a day. However, on the other end, you should also know that there are a few disadvantages. Like for instance, it needs to have considerable testing. It's like a nuclear plant. What if something goes off the ground? I'm cooked in that case. What if it fails? That's going to literally kill the whole people. It's going to kill the people around me. It's going to cause a very big damage. So the one disadvantage we have is that it's expensive to set up and it needs a lot of testing. Secondly, there is always a possibility that a set of condition comes up which has never ever been thought or like programmed into the computer, that okay, something like this happens. So the person is like, okay, the computer does not know that what do I do in this case. So in that case, it's required that you have a supervisor sitting. But for instance, if the supervisor was chilling or watching Netflix at that time, there's a great safety implication, because then it might go something which is very bad. Okay. And moving on, you have a problem of cyber attacks too. It's a nuclear system, top-notch security. But what if I say that some hacker, like some super top-notch hacker, comes up and they get access to my computer system. Now they have access to my nuclear system, and now they can like do anything with it. So that's so dangerous, right? So yeah, that's also a drawback. And the last one is that automated systems basically need enhanced maintenance, which can be expensive. So you need to again and again check, again and again look. If something is off the ground, you gotta correct it. If not, there could be a great problem being caused. Similarly, this is another example of manufacture of medicines. You again see we have some sort of what do we call it? This is the CPU. This is my process machine. This is my process machine, which are like my actuators, and this is my monitoring station. So in my monitoring station, I have my sensors. The sensor sends the data to the CPU. It makes decision. How does it take decisions? Maybe if it needs data from other part, data which it had previously, like how much asset to add, how much time to give, and blah blah blah. We can store that data in a database too, and then based upon the data we have, based upon the census data, it's going to take a decision. Based upon the decision, it's going to send signals to actuators and sensors to do something, and then it could do the corresponding processes. Okay, so it's going to do the corresponding practices and processes to ensure that a specific medicine is created. And what are the benefits? Again, it's way more faster, it's way more safer, it's going to be running under optimum conditions, it's cheaper, it has higher productivity, more consistent. It has the same points which we just discussed, right? But at the same time, we also have a lot of disadvantage, like it is expensive to set up. There is also always a possibility that that a set of condition comes up which we have never ever tested before, so it might cook us. Then there is also a big thing that we need to consecutively maintain it, which is basically something which is going to take a lot of time, and also at the same time would be super expensive. And of course, the best or the worst part about, or the worst disadvantage, is that any computerized system is subject to cyber attacks, which means that there is always a risk of a hacking action being taken up, through which a third party user can get access to our computer or our system. Okay. Moving on, the third example is of transport. We are just going to do 3 examples. The other examples are just copying it up. So you can just open up my notes. The link for my website is in the description. You can just open it from there. Go to the resources section, and up there you can have my notes. And then you can just have a look at how the others are working. No need to memorize the exact model or everything. But yeah, you should just generally understand how there is an inputs coming in, those going into a microprocessor, getting processed, and then going out to basically being processed. चलो फरीना भाई आप चले जाना, आपको किसने रोका है? Yeah, if you want I can also remove you from the stream myself, फिर आप आराम से गेम खेल लेना. Wanna play it? Go, no one is stopping you. Moving on, so how can it be used in transport? So for instance, we were trying to create an automatic parking system where what happens is we have cars, and there is a car, a person comes out of it, and then the car on its own goes back and basically gets itself parked up here. This is also an automated system which works on its own. The benefits are that it could allow, because everything is going to be very precise. We won't be like the Pakistani drivers, where like if cars are supposed to be parked this way, one after another, we're going to come up as a Pakistani driver who parks it this way. So like literally he took the space of 2 cars. So if you park it in the correct way, it will allow more number of cars to be stored. It's also going to be allow traffic disruptions to be controlled. It would also allow cars to be fit into smaller places. It would also allow fewer dents and scratches to the car. And of course, at the same time, I'm also going to say that it's going to be way more safer, and the results are pretty much going to be very, 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 very consistent. Okay, but at the same time there are a lot of disadvantages. The disadvantages are that if a person over relies upon this, okay, then in that case, what if the driver loses his skill of how to park it right way, right? Like let's say I have never parked it in such a complex place, so I will never get the chance to learn it. So that could result in a loss of skills. Secondly, what if I say that the sensors get faulty, or let's say the cameras which are sending the data, they are having dirt upon it, and it cannot even let's say gather the data properly. What if it leads to some wrong decision, and boom, rather than moving left, I move towards the right and I go and hit that car? Okay, so yeah, then of course there is another problem, curbing of feel, not that important, you can skip this. खुद को confuse ना करो. Go with the points which are relevant, repeated at this point, like options which are expensive. Okay, so it's expensive, then of course it requires additional maintenance. So if you look up onto this examples, you can see that the examples always have 4 points. It's more efficient, it's cheaper for like the working force wali examples. It's it can work 24/7, more efficient, it is way more safer and all that stuff. And then in the disadvantages, we are seeing how it's resulting in loss of skills, and there are always going to be possibilities where it could malfunction, and that you need to consecutively maintain it, which is basically something that is going to be very expensive. So these are sort of the general points. You just memorize the general points, then whatever scenario comes up in exam, you just try to apply it around that stuff. Okay, moving on, adaptive control. What happens is we have sensors. Sensor sends the data, the microprocessor calculates the distance between them. If the distance is less than a specific thing, the actuators are sending a command to put a brake. If not, then it accelerates. That's how your normal adaptive cruise control works. Okay, these are some other examples. You can check out the notes of mine to read them on your own. I will not be wasting any more time on them. But if you see, the advantages and disadvantages are sort of the same. But what I would recommend is, remember the one which are sort of repeated. Okay, remember the stuff which is sort of repeated. Okay, so if something is being sort of just give me a second. So if something, yeah, done. So if something is being repeated, don't memorize the stuff which is something, what do we call it, unique. Try to go with the points which are repeated again and again. See, more consistent, less dangerous, faster. Risks are always present. Equipment can be expensive to set up and then afterwards maintain it. So you see, all these points are being repeated. So just read all of them. Look up onto the diagram to see how can we make a diagram if a question comes up. Whenever a question for chapter number 6 automated system comes up, whenever a system, okay, I can look at the agriculture one. You had a request, so let's look on to the agriculture. So whenever a question comes up, remember, there are going to be sensors that are going to be sending data to your CPU. Then there's going to be some sort of action which is being taken through my actuators, and all this stuff is going to be digitally supervised by a human. First, you need to make this in a diagram. So you see, we have the controller, the CPU. We have the wireless transmitters which are basically sending us the data. Like, let's say this is orange farm, rice farm, wheat farm. It's sending the data. The data comes in, it goes into my controller. The controller gets the data, it's my CPU, and then based upon that, it makes decision, it sends commands to the actuators, and then the actuator does the work. Okay, it does the work. And at the same time, we as humans will be supervising it. So we sit alongside it. So if a question comes up, you need to do it this way. Again, remember, supervisor is only in automated system. If a question asks you for AI system, don't write supervisor for AI. Automated system is not equal to AI. AI, ML are different things. This is something different. Okay, so remember this in your mind too. This is really important. Okay, so let's move on. So the advantages are similarly, it has reduced labor costs. Okay, you do not need a dedicated team. It's way more efficient. You can better control of precious resources. It has a faster time. It's even safer, and that you can vary the irrigation requirements based upon the crop, right? But at the same time, you have the drawbacks. Structure of HTML is not included. When will you write ADC working? If the question asks you about how does a sensor work, only when a sensor works. Like how does a sensor works, like how does a security system sensor work, then you need to write about ADC. Otherwise, in the recent marking schemes, they are not sort of talking about ADC that common, but लिख दो कोई मसला नहीं है, सही है. The class started at 4:50, around 4:50, 4:55. Okay. Exactly, everyone has the same advantages and disadvantages. So you have to memorize the one which are general, so that if a question comes up for 4 marks, आप दो कोई general advantages लिख दो and you write 2 general disadvantages. No need to memorize all these complex points. Similarly, drawbacks, expensive, high maintenance costs, you need to maintain it and blah 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 stuff. Okay, so that's everything in the automated system part. Now we're going to come to the second part of our chapter number 6, which discusses robotics. Now this robotics word basically comes from the word robota. Robota is basically a word which means forced labor. So we sort of creating a computer system which basically is, which we force to do labor at all costs. So what you need to understand up here is that it's basically something which does human-like functions. So human functions being conducted by a robot. Three laws of being a robot. This isn't that much in your syllabus, but you should know this, that for a robot, again, you can ignore this, but a robot may not injure a human. A robot must obey the commands, and that a robot must protect itself. These are three laws, again, not relevant, but yeah, just keep it in your mind. Okay. And if a question comes up to define robotics, remember, robotics is that branch of computer science that brings together the design, construction, operation of a robot. Okay. So for instance, where and what are might be the applications. So for example, I might want to make use of robotics in factories, where, like, let's say I want to weld two things together. So rather than a human doing it, it's a repetitive manual task. Why not set a robot for it? Okay, maybe I'm cutting and fitting windscreens, rather than doing something on its own, rather than a human doing it, and robot can do it. Then spray painting stuff, bottling, labeling, warehouses, or cut out metal pieces, all that stuff are potential examples of where a robot could be used in a factory. Okay. Similarly, you can make use of robots in homes too. For example, you might have those autonomous floor sweepers. You may have autonomous lawn mowers. You might have like a friend robot, like for example, what do we call it? Alexa. So you say, hi Alexa. So that's like your friend robot. You have ironing robot at this point with the name of stuff like dressman. Okay. You have pool cleaning robots. You have window cleaning robots. So those are stuff which are robots that do those human repetitive tasks. But yeah, it does this, and it allows us our life to be improved. Similarly, you might not be aware of this, but drones. Drones are also, type of robot. It's like an unmanned aerial vehicle, right? We do not sit inside it. It's self-moving, and it's like either remote or like which we can sort of control through remote, or we have a lot of drones which are totally autonomous. It goes here and there, here and there, here and there, and goes everywhere using embedded system. So this could be used in places like, let's say, aerial deliveries. It's not that common right now, but over the next 10-15 years, inshallah, this is something that's going to become common. Okay. Then of course you would have seen, for all those farewell photos and everything, we have those aerial photographs, right? Those are also examples of robots. But now the main question which comes up, which is always there in exam, whenever they ask you about robotics, they ask you this one thing: give 3 features or characteristics of robots. Remember, your robot should have the ability to sense the surrounding. Okay, which means that it's going to have some sort of hardware. Okay, so it's going to have some sort of electrical components. So if this comes up in exam, you need to write the fact that it has electrical components. Electrical components such as sensors, which allows it to sense the surroundings, such as sensors. Then secondly, it has a degree of movement, for which if it comes up in exam, you're going to write that it has a mechanical interface. Okay, it has a mechanical interface, mechanical body, where it could basically make use of wheels, piston, gears to carry out multiple functions like moving here, there, up, down, all that stuff, to ensure that it has a degree of movement. So yeah. And lastly, you have a programmability element, which means that it has a brain which you can train to do a specific thing. So these are the 3 characteristics. The marking scheme wordings are a bit different. You can again check out the marking scheme. One is related to how it has electrical components, then it has a mechanical body or a structure. Okay, so it has a mechanical structure, but all the other points are related to it, and then it's programmable, which means you can train it up. So these are the points, these are the relevant explanation. This question does come up, so it's really important. So do they ask? I haven't seen a question where they ask you, but if they do ask you, the lines in the blue, they are basically its explanation. So how can you explain it? You just talk about this stuff and you're good to go. Okay. Okay, moving on. For example, this is like some example. We have 2 types of robots. One could be the software robots, one could be the normal robots. So like the physical robots. The physical robots are the one which I said, like Alexa, the automatic floor cleaning machines and all that stuff. Software robots, on the other hand, are stuff like chatbots, your search engine bots, your bots to which you might be talking, your web crawlers. That's again irrelevant, but yeah. But they are not your true robots, but they also come under robots category. So remember this. Okay. Then there are 2 types of robots. One is known as the independent robot. The other is known as dependent robot. Independent robot is the one which has no human control at all. It's like fully autonomous, like human is not even supervising it. And this type of robot could replace any human actively. I have not seen a question on independent and dependent robot at this point till ever. However, just keep it in your mind. It's like one word. Okay. Then secondly, it has a dependent, we have a dependent robot, which is basically where a human is sort of having an interaction with it through a display, where a human is controlling it up, human is doing something with it. So it can like sort of supplement to it, but it cannot totally replace it. Okay, so for example, I might have something, for example, a robot which, let's say, makes coffee for me, but if I don't ask it to make coffee for me, or like I don't give it my input or something of that nature, or like not even that, for example, you might say that, okay, I'm making a car, so in the car there is one small part of it which is being done by robot, but generally a human is also working inside it. So such a robot where a human and robot are working collectively, that's known as the dependent robot. Okay, what's the difference between automated system and robot? That's a good question. So the main difference is that your robot in majority cases sort of acts independent. Okay, it sort of acts independent. So you do not require a lot of human intervention for a robot. We do have dependent robot, but we generally do not. And the one where we do require the intervention of a human, that is similar to saying that this is now an automated system. But if I have to explain it in simple words, automated system is like the whole chapter. Okay, so it's like automated system is everything. And within the world of automated systems, we have these things like robots. And then further within this characteristics, we may come up as AI, ML, and all that stuff within it. But generally, the whole characteristic is that you have sort of, what do we call it? AI, automated system. Same. So robots can also be autonomous. Yep, they are autonomous. So you see, independent robot is the one which is fully autonomous. So let's move on, guys. Machine learning, AI पे पहुंचने तो दो ना, फिर बता दूंगा difference. Sir, I have a question. Can I get a B or C if I just go through the syllabus? Next question, please. Ajib, like, how can you expect to? But yeah, just give it your best. Why not? Allah khair kare. आज का दिन जितना कर सकते हो करो. Applications of robots, where could they be used? They could be used in factories. We just saw it could be used to weld parts together. It could be used to cut stuff. It could be used to spray paint stuff. It could be used for bottling, labeling, warehouses, cutting out of metal pieces. And robots are very good at repetitive tasks. Here are some advantages, disadvantages. So like for instance, a robot can work 24/7. They do not need to sleep. They are less expensive in the longer run. They are more productive. They are more suited to boring tasks. They are more accurate. They are having less cost because they do not require lighting or maybe heating if it's like winter, right? But there are disadvantages, like it might not do the complex stuff. It might not be able to what do you call it? It might result in de-skilling. It might result in higher unemployment rates. They might tell you that, okay, if a factory is being moving up, then the costs might be like, very high if you have to do it using these robots, like transferring them or getting new robots. And of course, robots are very expensive. Now, literally see, these are the same points which you were writing for the automated systems. So you see, right, the chapter 6 is literally about the same 4 to 6 points, and all these general answers are within the marking scheme. Memorize those general answers and just write them in the exam paper and you'll be good to. Okay. Exactly. Moving on, this is second example, like we have transport vehicles where we have driverless cars. How they work similar. Sensors, data goes to cameras data plus sensors data all together works on a microprocessor, and then it makes some sort of signal which does something. So yeah. Namaz break inshallah at 5:45. Okay, what are the advantages and disadvantages? Advantages are that it's way more safer, it's better for environment, reduce traffic congestion, increase lane capacity, reduce travel time, stress-free parking, but very expensive, possibility of hacking, security issues, needs to be well maintained. People should be not reluctant to use the technology and all that stuff, could result in unemployment for, let's say, taxi drivers and all that stuff. Similarly, we have autonomous trains which same follows the same models. We have pilotless aeroplanes which same follows the same model. We have agriculture where it could be used to for harvesting. It could be used for weed control where it could the AI could detect the weed and cut them off. It could be used for phenotyping. What is phenotyping? So it might scan every plant to check for their health. If the health for anything is not fine, they might signal it to the farmer that okay, this specific plant needs a checkup, like maybe need fertilizer and stuff like that. And then it could be used for seed planting, it could be used for fertilizer drone and all that stuff. So you see, right, a lot of usages. Similarly, it could be used in medicine where you could use it in robotic surgery, you could use it in patients monitoring, you could use it in error diagnostic to take blood samples to deliver healthy drugs and medicines. Then it could also be used in household, like for example vacuum cleaners, lawn mowers, Alexa series, personal assistants. It could be used for entertainments like theme parks. In film industry, robots are used for like CLI, CGI, stunts, so those special effects, all that stuff. So those are also robots. And that basically marks the end of our chapter related to robots too. Moving on, the third part of our chapter is basically regarding artificial intelligence. Okay. So artificial intelligence, okay, I guess we need to put some people on timeout. Cricket bro, again if you remember the points, good to go. If not, फिर थोड़ा मसला. Also guys, yes, I am a LUM student. So yeah, please stay relevant to what's being discussed. Anything out of the box and I'm gonna kick someone. Okay, sir, make someone for a mod. Okay, let's do one thing. Let me make Huzefa the mod. Huzefa, you are now the moderator. Okay, and what you should do is, because you have been taking all the classes live with me from the start, any person who is sort of spamming irrelevant stuff, please put them to timeout. Okay, yeah, Huzefa Khan. So yeah, okay, we also have Rayan. Okay, Rayan, I'm gonna make you done. Rayan, you can also do it. Okay. All right, let's move on. So what's AI? Artificial intelligence is basically something which stands for, it's basically a branch of computer science that stimulates human intelligence. So it replicates cognitive functions of the brain. So for example, it is a branch of computer science that sees that okay, how intelligent a person is, and it tries to copy the intelligent part of a human brain and tries to bring that into action. Okay, so now artificial intelligence are basically machines that can replicate and measure against humans in tasks like reasoning, speaking, sight. Now robots or automated system, they were only doing a specific task. They did not have the brain to do stuff on their own. Then AI came into action, which basically now has the brain. Okay, oh bro, chill, not for a time. Okay, timeout 600 seconds kitna banta hai? Just put them on a timeout of like 5 minutes or 10 minutes max. Okay, so also guys, any irrelevant question and you guys will be put on timeout, please, I'm telling you. Okay, so the thing is, the automated systems were only doing a specific task. Then we came up with the machine artificial intelligence, which was like, now let's bring up the brain element to it too, so that it could do stuff on its own. So that capability of doing stuff on its own came under the discipline of artificial intelligence. The way artificial intelligence works is that it basically collects data, it collects rules. It combines these two things to learn. It combines the data it has gathered, it combines the rules it has gathered. And then based upon that, it learns, it adapts, and it reasons. Okay, if this thing is happening from this data, I will be doing this. If this thing comes up, I might be doing this. If something like this happens, I might be doing this. So it has this ability to learn and adapt or reason to external stimuli. External stimuli basically means what's happening in the surroundings, okay, or any external stuff, and based upon that it makes a decision. Now there are three categories of AI. Three categories of AI. Again, these AI stuff are not that much relevant in according to your syllabus. Again, know it. Narrow AI is the one which is weak AI. It's like that AI which works, but it can never, or like it can only outperform a human in one task. For example, I might say there is a good essay writing tool, so it only outperforms a user or a human in a single task. Then one is known as general AI. It is the one in which the machine is working similar to that of a human. So it's like performing similar efficiency to that of a human. Okay. And then we have the strong AI, which is like Chat GPT, which can literally outperform human in multiple tasks, from coding to, like, let's say, writing essays to solving questions. So these are three types of AI. And now comes the main point. How does an AI work? So an AI model works using reasoning and learning model. By the word reasoning, I basically means that it's going to draw a conclusion based upon the data sets. So every AI model, when we want to create it, we feed it some data. We tell it stuff, right? You need to teach it. So the data basically goes into my AI model, and then what your computer or the model does is it learns, it adapts the following model of reasoning. With this sort of draw a conclusion, okay, this happens, I'm going to do this. This happens, I'm going to do this. This happens, I'm going to do this. And then based upon these reasonings, it's then later on going to do deductive reasoning, which means that it's going to make a rules base, it's going to create a database from the facts, and then it's going to apply those rules to a new position. For example, I say that, okay, if temperature is, let's say, high. Okay, so if temperature is, let's say, greater than or is basically high, then I might say that you turn on AC. But I don't know what high is. But I can say that there is another point somewhere in the memory where I might have said that a person was taking medicine because the temperature was 40 and it was very high. So now what I can do is I can create a connection that, okay, that person took medicine when it was 40, so it might mean that 40 is a high temperature. So like if temperature is greater than 40, then let's apply and turn on the AC. So you see, it's making connections between multiple sets of data and then applying those rules to a new problem. And that is how our AI works. Okay, so do the games that have NPCs, they also use AIs? Yes, they definitely use AIs. These Fortnite bots which you have been talking about or playing with, and once you get that victory royale and you're celebrating that, okay, I'm a pro player, I just had 20 kills, wo sare noobs nahi, those are all bots. Okay, so yeah. So what can an AI do? So an AI can learn from their own steps, like whatever they do, they learn from it, which allows them to improve their experience. They could handle real situations, okay, novel situations, unique kisam ke. They can recognize patterns and based upon that make predictions. And remember that AI is faster than humans. However, some examples of AI could be chatbots, autonomous cars, content creation, household applications. Okay, moving on, we have AI systems. What are AI systems? It's now, AI is further divided into smaller chunks. Okay, so one is known as an expert system, which we are just firstly going to see, and then we're going to look into the ML part again. Okay, so expert system is that subtype of an AI system where it basically mimics the decision making capabilities of a human. So it sort of copies how a human works. How does it do that? It uses knowledge, plus it uses the inferences. By inferences, I mean the relevant connections it has established previously. And based upon that, it basically solves problems. So it identifies patterns, and based upon those patterns, it's basically going to detect future decisions. So how does it work? So you might have played this game Akinator, right? What happens in an Akinator game is that if you install it up and you think about a specific person, it's going to ask you questions in regards to that. Okay, it's going to ask you questions again and again, and based upon that, you're basically going to answer it up. Okay, and whatever you answer, give the answer. Because of that answer, it's going to put a next question, then the next question, then the next question, and it's going to eventually lead you to a final answer that, okay, you are basically at this point, this is what you are thinking about. So this model which an Akinator game follows is that of an expert system. So how does an expert system work? An expert system is a model where it again and again asks you questions. It asks you a question, and using those questions, it uses those answers of the question to reach the conclusion. Where could it be used? It could be used in the oil and mineral processing. It could be used in diagnostics of patient illness. This is pretty common in terms of exam. I've seen a question for this multiple times. It could be used in fault diagnostic in mechanical and electronic equipment. It could be used for tax and let's say financial calculations. It could be used in games such as chess. It could be used for what do we call it, a logistical point of view. It could be used for identifying plants, animals, chemical or biological compound. And what are the benefits we get? The benefits are that they have a high level of expertise, they have a high accuracy, they are very consistent, they have the ability to store large amount of ideas and facts, they can make traceable logical solutions. It is possible for the system to have multiple expertise, they have a fast response time, they are unbiased because everything relies upon the data. They can even indicate the probability, but of course everything having advantages could also have वो उस पे मैं आता हूँ सही है. Do you need to memorize the application? No. You just need to understand कि यार कहाँ पे it can be used, okay, where it could be used. And then of course it has a lot of disadvantages too, like for instance, users need to be more trained on how to use them. Then setting it up and the initial costs are also high. Then of course maintaining it could also be something which has a lot of cost. And then sometimes this is a model, right? So what if it asks you very heavy say questions and it gives you cold responses that may not be appropriate in certain conditions, like for example you just have a fever and it god forbid says that you have TB. Okay, so you might just have fever and it gives you a TB indicator. So that there are possibilities for such things too, and they're only good to an extent to which the data has been fed into it. So like it works in a way where we train it with data, right? So we give it some data, the data goes into the CPU and combine it forms an expert system. But if the data is very old nature, like something from the 1990s, now if you're in 2026 and you expect it to give the latest data, it won't, because it's working on the 1990s data. Okay, so that's something problem. You need to then update the data sets, which is some another sort of an extra thing for us. But yeah, and of course there is also a problem that users can somehow make very dangerous assumptions too, like the way I just said that you sort of have what do we call it, a fever and it just says that okay buddy, you now have TB. So like such problems can happen for AI, and this is pretty common whenever we, so like when I had this what do we call it, when I had my COVID vaccination, I remember that night my heartbeat was very fast, okay, and I searched on Google that what are the side effects, and then it said high heartbeat and that you should go and consult a cardiologist, and I was like okay bhai bas ho gaya scene. So yeah, you see such things can happen, okay. Similarly, moving on, we have structures of an expert system. So when we talk about structures of an expert system, we need to understand that this is one of the most commonly tested question in your chapter, from your chapter number 6. It asks you how does an expert system work, okay? So remember, an expert system is built upon these few components. We have the user interface, we have the explanation system, we have the inference engine, we have the rules base, and we have the knowledge base. What happens is that the user interface is the part where you give the input to the program, the input to the system. For example, questions based upon the Akinator one. Let's say it's asking us for what's your height, what are your currently sort of temperature, what is your fever at this point, and blah blah stuff. All that stuff basically comes under user interface. So any input provided by the user is going to go in the user interface part. Okay, now this could be in terms of dialog boxes, it could be command prompts, it could be maybe microphone input, it could be yes no answer, whatsoever, but it's going to be the place where a user inputs the data. Then we have the inference engine. This is the CPU, this is your brain, this is the main processing element. This is where the input from the user is going to come up, and it's basically going to act as a search engine. The way it works is that, for example, they say that my favorite player, let's say I'm thinking about the best footballer in the world, which we all know is Lionel Messi, right? There is no one better than Messi. I don't want to get into debate, and Rayan, if anybody talks and says that Ronaldo is the best, so you might put him on a timeout, okay? He is good, but he's not better than Messi again. So yeah, so let's say we want to search about the GOAT Lionel Messi, okay? So if I want to search for the GOAT Messi, Ronaldo is also GOAT, but yeah, like Messi is the bigger GOAT, right? So if I have to search about, okay, so you have the first Ronaldo, maybe Never mind. So if I have to search about Messi, the way it's gonna work is gonna ask me some questions. So it might say, is ChatGPT expert system? Yes, it is. But it's even more than expert system, but it is. Okay. So the way it works is so the way it works is it's gonna ask you question. It's gonna ask you questions that, okay, is this player in the attacking position? So in the attacking positions, we have the striker, we have the left wing, we have the right wing, and we have the center forward, right? These four positions. So if I say yes, now my computer is going to go to something known as knowledge base. It's a database. Okay. It's a database. It's that place where I have all the data, every information. Okay. So we have every information. Now this information which we are need timeout karo, karte jao. Any anti-Messi comment and it's a 10-second timeout. And any wrong comment, by the way, guys, respect. सही है, थोड़ा गुजारा करो, please. So yeah, knowledge base has all the data. So for example, it knows all the information about players. So when I say that the player is in the attacking field, I say that you go to the knowledge base and you grab the data of all the people who are in the attacking field. So your inference engine, this acts as a search engine, your Google search engine. It says that, okay, attackers. So it's going to grab all the data. It's going to grab all the data of the attackers from the knowledge base. Okay, it's going to grab all the data from the attackers. Now we have in our inference engine all the data about the knowledge base. So you see the inference engine, it acts like a search engine where it examines the knowledge base for the information. They gather the information, and guess what? After this, what happens is, once it has gathered all the attackers, it's now going to give another question. Okay, guys, chill. Bas bahut ho gaya. Sahi hai? So it's going to now ask another question. This time they might say, okay, did the player play for any Spain club? Did the player ever played for any Spanish club? Okay, so we know that it could be both Barcelona and, for example, for all those thinking it's Ronaldo, let's say it might be Ronaldo. Let's do it for both of them. Okay, so now the moment you say yes, it's going to go to rules base. It's going to make some decision. Okay, this person said that the player is an attacker. Then this person said that the player played in a Spanish team. Who could this person be? So the thinking about who this player could be, that is being done in the rules base, using the rules base. It's like that part which makes those rules that, okay, if this thing becomes true and this thing becomes true and this condition becomes true, then this means that this player is basically Messi. Okay, then this player is Messi. So now when I know that, okay, this player also played for Spanish team, now it's going to bring all the Spanish players, attackers up here. Then it might ask me, did the player played at right wing position? Now Messi played at right wing, right? So if I say yes, Messi did play at right wing. So again, it's going to make another decision that, okay, if the player was an attacker plus the player was played in Spanish team, then plus he was a right wing. So it's going to bring all the right wings player. And finally, they might say, is he the all-time GO test player, the world champion? Jitna bhi logon ne rona hai, rolo. The person who cooked every single person out there. The person who have been recipient of so many awards. The person who have been my GOAT from ever since I've started watching football. And then I'm going to be like, yes. And then my rules base would be like, okay, if this thing is true and 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 this thing is true, this means this player is is Messi. So it's going to make a decision. It's going to bring it up to explanation. So it's going to say, oh, the player is Messi. And then after that, it's going to basically bring its explanation that you said that he's going to be this person, which shows that it's basically going to be Lionel Messi, and boom, there you go. Okay, so yeah, sir, time out yourself. मैं खुद time out हो जाऊंगा, फिर आपका grade cook हो जाएगा. Okay, so yeah, exactly. Everyone has their own preferences, but when you're taking my class, Messi has to be the GOAT. बाकी बाद में आप लोगों ने जो करना है करो. Okay, so yeah, moving on. Only my hairline is fine. It's just मेरे बाल थोड़े आगे की तरफ आएंगे. Okay, so yeah, you can see. Okay. Hairline बचत हुई है. I just keep it this way. Moving on. So that's like your user yeah नमाज break बस ये जल्दी खत्म करता हूँ फिर उसके बाद नमाज break दे दो. So the inference engine, it basically is responsible for gathering information by asking questions, and based on those questions it basically asks more questions, and then what happens is that the inference engine is the problem solving part that basically makes use of the inference rule. So it's like, okay, Messi Ballon d'Or, it's going to search for it, then it's going to make some decision, and if that thing is true, that thing is true, that thing is true, it's going to be like telling us that, okay, next question should be this, next question should be this, so that it sort of, you know, gets you to the final answer. And then because this knowledge base, what the knowledge base is, it's basically something which stores data, like, okay, Messi, and then it might have the relevant keyword. So like I might say Messi, and it might have Argentina, it might have goat, it might have let's say FC Barcelona, it might have Miami, it might have right wing, it might have Ballon d'Or and all that stuff, right? So the moment any of these keywords comes into knowledge base, it's going to automatically predict that, okay, it's similar to that of Messi. So it's going to make use of the rules base, like the rules which are coming in, it's going to make the rule, the input coming from inference engine, that's going into rules base, and based upon that it's going to check the knowledge base to see what that object is, and then based upon that it's sort of going to get me to the stuff. Okay, so what's a knowledge base? Knowledge base is basically a repository of facts. It's like a collection of all the data. It stores all the knowledge about an area of an expertise obtained from a number of expertise sources. So for example, it's objects and their attributes. For example, you might be thinking about a dog. So an attribute could be it's a mammal, it's a pet, it lives on a land, it makes barking sound, its body is covered in fur, it walks on four legs. Say similarly for Messi, it could be a footballer, number one player, FC Barcelona, Miami, and all that stuff. And then we have a rules base, which is basically that specific things which makes the final decision. So the rules base is a set of inference rules which are used by the inference engine to draw the conclusions. Okay, so they basically follow logical thinking model in a way that they say if continent is this and language is this and this is true, then basically the country has to be Brazil. So then they basically output this thing, and that's how you get to the answer. So you can find the annotated diagrams document in the resources section. Go to the notes on my website, link is in description. Go to the notes, up there you're going to find an annotated diagram PDF. How do you set it up? So this isn't something tested, but yeah, the way you set it up is that you gather a lot of information from textbook, research papers, internets, then you use that information to create a knowledge base. Then you create a rule base that is basically set of all the conditions and all the if statements you might have. Then the inference engine is basically set up, which basically is sort of an automated expert system that works in like making conclusions, analyzing the data and all that stuff. Then you create a user interface for the user to allow the input and output of data. And then of course the whole system is tested again and again, and boom, the results can be compared and any changes required are made, and this marks the end of your expert system too. So we are just left with one small chunk of the topic, which is machine learning. This is the last part of chapter number 6, and the max it might take more is like 10 minutes. The link is in the description. Okay, so what do we call it? We have a break of, let's say, 10 minutes, not long, but 10 minutes है, जाओ नमाज वगैरह भी पढ़ लो, rest a bit. You have 10 minutes break. We're gonna start off again at 5:55 inshallah. Okay, so be back at 5:55, and then we're gonna start off with machine learning. Then we're gonna do some few questions. Okay, and then we can move on. Inference engine is basically that part which is gonna take your data. It's going to take your data, and then it's going to basically use that data to search in the knowledge base. It's going to use that data to search in the knowledge base, and there in the knowledge base it's going to see that with what characteristic is this feature matching. So if I say goat, so it's going to search, the inference engine is like a search engine. It's going to search for goat in the entire knowledge base. It's going to search whether what things are related to goat. So based upon that, it's going to grab the new data. So it's always reducing the set of data to smaller chunks so that you finally reach that one answer of yours. So you have a namaz break till 5:55, and inshallah see you guys after that. Right. Assalamu alaikum everybody. We are back. Let me set up the stuff. Yeah, so let me turn on the chat box. Never mind, छोड़ो इसको क्या इसमें देना है. Good. Yeah. But all right, let's just get back to the content. Let me just send a message that we are starting off. Then we can start off. We're gonna do a few expert system questions. Don't worry, उसमें clear up हो जाएगा इंशाल्लाह. Right, without wasting any further time, let's just jump on to the questions. Hey, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So yeah, what's machine learning? Now we're gonna look into the topic of machine learning. Machine learning is basically a discipline, or perhaps let's just wait for a minute, 1 minute रुक जाते for others to join.
IGCSE O level economic.
Right, let's start off. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So yeah, everything is perfectly set up. Let me reset the chat box and let's get back to it. All right, yeah. Starting off. Okay, so we're going to start off with machine learning, ML. Okay, so what's machine learning? Machine learning is a subset of AI, which means that it comes under AI. So it's not something different from AI, it's like something coming under artificial intelligence. And this is basically the science of training computers with data so that it can make predictions even about the unseen data without the needing of getting reprogrammed. So like generally, this AI worked in a way that if I taught it something, if I taught it with some data, okay, that you need to do this, it's only going to do that well based upon what it has been trained with. What machine learning does is that machine learning operates in a way that we train it with the data, and that with every data, whatever action it takes, it sort of calculates some feedback for itself, and then based upon that feedback it retrains itself on its own. So without the need of any programming, it sort of again and again retrains itself. It tells itself that, okay, you need to do it this way. You need to improve on this aspect. You need to do this thing. You need to do that. So what an ML does is that it train algorithms with data that can learn from previous experiences. For example, if I say that, okay, this person is currently watching the reel for food, and he watched two food reels on Instagram completely, this does mean that, okay, the person sort of is hungry. So now the advertisements which might be coming up on their screen, that might be of Food Panda. Okay, the reels that might be coming up on the page, that might be of the companies who have sponsored ads related to their food companies and all that stuff. So what's happening? It's basically they have trained algorithm in which they're looking onto what's happening currently, and based upon that, it's training itself to do something better next. It makes prediction about unseen data. So like something like, for example, I create an ML model. For example, now I have mathematical calculations. ChatGPT can do mathematical calculations, right? So now ChatGPT was not taught all the mathematical calculation. Like it was not taught every single calculations which we make use of out of it, right? But it has learned all the basic programming mathematical calculations. Now even though if I give him some question out of nowhere, unseen data, it is still able to solve it. How? Because it sort of has the data, and using those data it makes prediction as to how it might be solved, and using those prediction it tries to solve the unseen data, unseen problem. That's how your machine learning works. So machine learning is basically that part or subset of computer science where you make predictions about the data which is even in unseen without the need of getting reprogrammed. You train algorithms with data that can learn from previous experiences. It can make prediction about unseen data, and it could at the same time handle large or complex data very quickly. The way it works is, for example, this is one example I've shared, like in search engines. You're going to see that when you search for a website, the website name comes at the top. Why does that come at the top and maybe some other website at the bottom? Have you ever think? So the thing is that every, like let's say you search for Facebook. So the first website comes out to be as of Facebook. Okay, so www.facebook.com. Okay, now let's say you were searching for some other Facebook. That Facebook was somewhere like at the very end. Now when you click on that very end Facebook page, it's going to tell the system that, okay, the person was looking for this, so maybe this is also important. So it's automatically going to retrain itself, so the next time person searches for Facebook, that same link which was at the bottom, it's now going to come at the top. And that is how your machine learning is being applied everywhere. You see something happens, then you're trying to search for something, it sees that, okay, this thing has been done this way, this means people are trying to find it. It teaches itself that, okay, I understand that, okay, this thing is going to happen at this point and that this is important. Why not bring it to the first page so that where everybody do it? Or like it's going to learn from the actions it has been performing in order to do a specific action. And that is everything you need to know about machine learning. ज़्यादा नहीं, बस आपको machine learning का इतना पता होना, एग्जाम के अंदर they might give you a scenario. Then you need to learn that machine learning basically learns and adapts to its surrounding. Okay, to its surrounding, and then based upon that, usually the questions which I've seen, it is that they learn how to avoid obstacles. Okay, they learn what's the most efficient route. Okay, they might learn what do we call it, what's the shortest path, or like what things to bring, what is the proper route and everything. Such questions come whenever they ask you for machine learning. So that is everything I've seen, and bas itna hi part hai. Now what are the differences between AI and ML? So AI is basically the concept where you simulate intelligence in machine. So you basically are trying to create machines which are capable of thinking like humans. Machine learning is a subset of AI, that is the practice of getting the machines to make decisions without even being programmed. So like you haven't even program the computer to do something, but it should be capable of applying some logic to come up with a solution. So the aim of such machines is that they can learn from what the data we have provided to it so that they could solve newer problems. Now for AI is basically divided into expert systems and machine learning. There is something else which is known as deep learning, but that's not in syllabus. And boom, there you go. We have successfully completed the entire chapter, and congratulations, chapter number 6, alhamdulillah, has been covered up. Boom. All right, that's it for the content wise. Now you're gonna do some questions. Okay, you're gonna do some questions I want you all to practice those questions. थोड़ी आप लोग की तैयारी शायरी अच्छी हो जाए. And उसके बाद we can have some practice for chapter 5 too. I will not be spending a lot of time though. However, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do a few questions, at least 5 to 6 questions, every smaller subsection. And what I want you to do is कि afterwards आप खुद भी थोड़ा try करो, okay? So let me just download the question set and start doing it. So yeah, questions for automated system. Because you're gonna say, do we have to learn everything with examples? यार ये मैंने कितनी दबा दिया. But you aren't required to learn the examples. You just need to understand how they're working. Then how can we access the previous live? So the moment this stream ends, after that, within 5 minutes, you would be able to look onto the previous content. Right now, because it's live, so आपको नजर नहीं आ रहा होगा. Okay, so let me print it or download it up. And now let me load up the different practice page. So let me close this practice booklet. And yeah, there we go. So let's start off. So let me bring up the document up here. Let me import it. So import. And we're sort of doing what we're going to be doing. Why didn't it download it? Yeah, so save it up here. And now okay, just give me a second. Let me load it up. Yeah. So we're gonna start off with chapter number 6.1 firstly, which is automated system. We're gonna do the questions for those. So the link is the same for the topicals, which was even done yesterday. Shout out to Sir Khaja of Robotics for compiling them. But yeah, there you go. I've shared the link with you all there too. So let's start off with the first question. So it says that a farmer has a plow that is an automated system, and that the plow is basically used to dig the ground in a field to prepare it for planting seeds. The plow uses sensors and a microprocessor to maintain a straight line when digging the ground. State what is meant by an automated system. Easy question. You're just going to say that it's a system that can perform actions without any human interventions. So you're going to say a system that can perform actions without any human intervention. That can perform actions without any human intervention. We're going to come live tonight, inshallah, at 10 p.m. on my Instagram to discuss some final moment tips, okay? Without any human intervention. Human intervention. Part B says describe the role. So now we all know that when we talk about an automated system, it receives the data is analyzed by your microprocessor, and then the microprocessor basically sends the signal to do a specific task, like to trigger an action, right? So I'm going to say that the microprocessor receives the data from the microprocessor receives the data from the sensors, okay? And then, by the way, that's a really good suggestion, Rehan. I can do that. So the microprocessor receives the data from the sensors, and then it processes and analyzes that data. After which it makes a decision. And sends signals executed. It makes a decision and basically sends signals, trigger action based upon that. Sends signals to trigger action based upon that. Trigger action based upon that. And doing this will basically get you a perfect 3x3. Okay, going on, part 2 says give 2 benefits to the farmer of using an automated system. Now we studied multiple. I'm going to write the most general benefits. What it frees the farmer, or like it does not need break and can save money on labor cost. Easiest तरीका सही है, can save costs on labor or can save money, इस तरह कर लेते हैं. It can save you money on labor cost, point number one, and then you can write second point that it can work 24/7. It can work 24/7. Sir, how long will we take to do automation? We're gonna do like 3 to 4 questions every small part. Okay, बाकी questions आप लोग खुद कर देना इंशाल्लाह. So question 2 says that a robot vacuum cleaner uses sensors. So like 4 questions every, like 6.1, 4.6.2 and 4.6.3. Okay, so like around 10 to 12 questions for the whole topic. So a robot vacuum cleaner uses sensors to navigate around obstacles in a room. Take one box to show which sensor will be the most suitable for this purpose. So now this is more or less, to be honest, a chapter 3 question, but yeah, proximity, flow, pressure and level. It's sort of navigating obstacles. So when it's navigating obstacles, you need to use the sensor which is detecting something, and it's none other than our proximity sensor up here that can detect it. But yeah, a really good question was asked last night in the group. Remember, proximity sensor only works when the distance is very close. Okay, so like if you're sort of seeing or finding the distance between for like a security system to detect whether a person is coming in or like maybe stepping into your house or not. If you want to detect something like that, you need to use the infrared sensor. Proximity sensor is something which can only measure distances which are very close. Okay, like this microphone and my ear, such distances. If it's larger than that, proximity would be wrong. Then you need to write the infrared sensor. This was a good question asked last night in the group, so you should be aware of this. Moving on, you all were asking about those sensor questions कि आपको बड़े मसले होते हैं ना. So here you go. There is a question, 6-marker sensor question. It says the train driver pushes a button to close the train door when all the passengers have boarded. The train door will only close when there are no passengers in the doorway. The system has to check there are no passengers using a sensor and a microprocessor. The way it works is that if let's say this is my door, if let's say this is my bus door, okay. So this is my bus, for example, okay, and this is the door. Now we're gonna have some sensors up here, okay. We're gonna have some sensors up here. These sensors are again and again gonna send signals. It's gonna detect whether there is someone or not. So when there is someone passing through it, we would say that okay, the sensor is gonna send some sort of specific data, like okay, if the person is detected, send the value 1. If the person is not detected, send the value 0. Okay, so like if I say that the value 1 is detected, this means the person is present. So the sensor, the way it works is the sensor is going to consecutively send data to the computer's microprocessor. It's going to convert the data into digital form using ADC. Okay, so sensor data consecutively goes through ADC to your microprocessor, and now your microprocessor has some stored data. So like what could be the stored data? Stored data could be like, okay bro, if the data is basically equal to 1, this means a person is present. If it's equal to 0, this means the person is not present. Now what do we need to write 1 and 0? No, you are not required to write 1 and 0, but you should be aware about that it has some stored data, and then the data coming from the sensor, it's getting compared there. And based upon that, if it detects that okay, the value is 0, which means that there is no other person present, it's then gonna go and close the door using what? It's gonna use it using an actuator, which will basically close the door together. That's the whole purpose of how you need to basically do it. Okay, so I'm gonna just write the whole thing, but rather than writing it up, it's better if I could, what do we call it? Narrate it. Can we narrate something? How do you narrate something up here? So let me just write the text then maybe. So we have narration tool. We should have a narration tool. Okay, let me just quickly type it. That's going to save me more time. So for a question like this, whenever you get a question upon this or a sensor, you're always going to say firstly, what could a sensor be? So you can say an infrared sensor because it's like measuring the distance. So I can say an infrared sensor could be used, which is going to send consecutively data to the microprocessor. Okay, blah, 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 blah. And let me write it. So you're going to say, and okay, there, yeah. So an infrared sensor would be used. Okay, would be used. The sensor will consecutively send data to the microprocessor. Why is it not being extended? So it's going to send data to the microprocessor consecutively, and the data will be first converted into digital format using an ADC converter. Point number 3. And then you're going to say the microprocessor will compare the sensors data with the pre-stored values. If the value is outside the range, which means that a person is not present in the doorway, okay, the computer or the microprocessor will then send a signal, basically will send a signal to the actuator to close the door. If the value is within the range to indicate that a person is standing, then it will wait till the person enters the bus. That's everything you need to write. And then you can say the process will be repeated and is consecutive. That's it. So that's everything you need to write in this question. Okay, so that's everything you need to know. So if a question comes up on sensor, that's everything you need to know. Main point: sensor name, sending data, make it digital. If it's within the range, outside the range, you're going to send a signal to close the door. How? Then it's going to be based upon actuator. If it's not in the range, it will not close. This is going to go until the door can be closed. Or you can write it better this way, that will be repeated and it's consecutive until the door is closed. That's better. Door is closed. Okay. So if the spelling of the keywords in the marking is wrong, will it be accepted? Depends if the examiner understands what the keyword was, फिर शायद accommodate कर दे. Or if it's like literally you are trying to write sensor and you write something like the other sensor, like where you hide some censor the words, that censorship, then you might not get marks. Okay. You should mention conversion of data, and because it's necessary. So by the way, you can write it two ways. Okay. Either you can say that the data will be first converted into digital format using an ADC converter, or you can say the sensor will consecutively send digitalized data. So if you also say the point according to the newer marking schemes, if you even write the fact that the data sent is basically digitalized data, that's equivalent to saying that data is being passed through ACD. Okay, sorry, not ACD, MUN wala banda hu, ADC, my bad. I'm a very MUN guy, so yeah, exactly. Say the process will be indefinite. We did write that the process will be repeated and it's consecutive until the door is closed. So you can write that it's the process is sort of indefinite till the door is closed. Could we mention DAC? No, DAC is the other way. DAC, when you have digital and you want to make it, yeah, if you want to write that, you can. In the previous marking schemes, you used to have this thing where they used to say, we'll then send a signal to the actuator, which will make use of a DAC. But in the latest marking schemes, I'm seeing that they are not very much interested in all that stuff. Okay, so the newer marking schemes examiner, they are like, we do not care much about DAC and ADC. So yeah, so yeah. Can't we use proximity? You can use proximity. You can also maybe use a pressure sensor. All of them are also fine. Okay. So yeah, let's move on. Next question. So it says question 4 part B, explain one advantage of using an automated system in manufacturing. So what's the advantage? The advantage of manufacturing is that it basically, what do we call it? It can increase safety, right? Because workers do not need to go to the dangerous areas. Okay. So it could increase safety because the workers would not be required to, because the workers cannot will not be required to go into hazardous environments or dangerous environments to do work. So ADC is basically used when you want to convert data from sensor to some CPU. But whenever you want to go from CPU to some output, like to an actuator, the CPU command is basically converted into actuator language using a digital to analog converter, which is DAC. So that's say. But right now, marking schemes previously pre 2023, there used to be marks for these 2 points. In the latest marking scheme, there are no marks for writing ADC and DAC. सही है, so इसलिए आपको पता होना चाहिए. सर डिजिटलाइज डेटा भी कह सकते हैं डिजिटलाइज डीएटी को. यस बिल्कुल, ये मैंने यहाँ पे यही बात लिखी है कि एडीसी से पास होना इज इक्वल टू सेइंग डिजिटलाइज डेटा. ओके, yeah. Moving on, explain one disadvantage to the company owner of using an automated system. So you need to give an answer but relevant to the company owner only. So to a company owner, definitely the biggest disadvantage would be that high maintenance costs, maybe high installation costs. So like the company needs to find a lot of money to friend pay it directly. Okay, so all that stuff. So you can say high setup or installation costs. किधर गया? High setup and menu installation costs, and so the company costs, and so the company would be required to raise a lot of money. The company would therefore be required to raise a lot of money. Therefore, oh my graphic tablet क्या हो गया? Be required to raise a lot of money. Basically, my laptop battery is running low. It's because I'm literally streaming and doing whatnot. So yeah, to raise a lot of money. Therefore, I guess the notes taking app is sort of a bit lagging. So let's just type it up. Okay, so moving on. The next question says that the farm has an automated drinking system for its animal. The drinking system has a water ball that contains the water. When the water ball is empty, it is automatically refilled. Identify the most appropriate sensor. So what's the sensor which we have studied that allows us to detect how much liquid is left in a specific thing? It's my level sensor. Okay, you can make use of the level sensor. So you can write level sensor FA. Okay, then part B says describe how the sensor and the microprocessor are basically used to automatically refill. How does it work? So you just need to explain the whole process again. So you're going to say that the level sensor will consecutively send data to the microprocessor. Then again the same answer, just the scenario is being changed. Okay, the data would be first converted into digital format using a digital analog to digital converter. The microprocessor would then check if the amount of water left, or would check the data against the pre-stored value, and if it is out of range, if it is outside the range, then it's going to send a signal. To the actuator to basically open up the valve to refill water. If the value is within the range, the system does nothing and waits for the next set of data. This process is continuous. Bas, you write this. Okay, and that's your answer. That's how you need to answer every question. Okay, so everything related to sensor needs to be answered this way. So that's the first thing, automated system. You're going to get questions like this again and again. They will ask you regarding this, and that's everything you need to be clear with. Okay, nothing else. Now we're going to move on to the second type of question. Sir, would flow sensor for the previous question? Yeah, now the thing is, let me even check it, but if I'm not wrong, let me check this one thing. Let me confirm this one thing. Just give me a second. Okay, I need to verify this one thing from the syllabus. So I've sent the topicals link upar kahin pe. If anybody could kindly resend them. I need to verify this one thing from the syllabus before teaching it to you all. Yes, you can use flow sensor, okay? But you have a level sensor, so level sensor is more suitable up here. So I hope that's clear. Flow sensor, if I'm not wrong, what does a flow sensor do? So a flow sensor basically is that specific sensor which is used to detect the rate of liquid passing through something. Okay, so it's like detecting how much liquid is passing through a specific sort of item, right? So like water passing through a pipe per second, that's a flow sensor. So I cannot say, right, that to measure the level of a liquid I'm not going to be making use of the क्या कहते हैं flow sensor. So the stream is not showing up. It's not, it should be showing up too. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. It's perfectly fine. Sir, would only check if it's below range in order to, but it's up to you. So I said the same thing. The microprocessor would then check the data against the pre-stored values. And if it is outside the range means that it is outside the available amount, the perfect amount range. Then it's going to send a signal to the actuator to open the water valve so that it could refill it. Okay. Water passing through maybe a point. No. The question says that you need to detect the amount of water left inside a container. So that is only something which my level sensor gives me. Okay. A flow sensor would have been accurate if I say that the amount of water passing through a dam is being found out. Okay, so that's a place where we might want to use the flow sensor. Okay, Clay, let's move on to the next type of question. So now I'm going to do chapter number 6.2 questions, which are basically robotics. I'm going to do a few questions from there too, because we also have to do some, questions from chapter number 5, inshallah. So, काफी काम करना है. So let me just bring this up. Okay, let me load this. Import, and we're going to do robotics now. All right, let's get to the robotics question. So question number 1B says, the hospital has a robot that is used to perform surgery, and that a doctor controls the robot from a different location to perform surgery on a patient. One feature of the robot is that it has electrical components. What are the two other examples? Achani, give 2 examples of the electrical components. So what electrical components would it have? Definitely one has to be the sensors, and the second has to be your microprocessor. So you might say sensor and microprocessor. Okay, yeah. Moving on, part B says, what are the advantages of using the robot to perform a robotic surgery? So you need to give the example. So definitely doctor will not be required to travel. So it could be done by any doctor in the world. It could be done immediately without any need for waiting time. Travel cost could be saved. Surgery can improve the accuracy. So less chances of error. Okay, I can say that it's even more safer. The chances of success are higher. So any of these 4 points would be perfectly fine. So I can say that a doctor isn't required to be physically present while performing the surgery. This means any specialized doctor could do the surgery, and that the doctor would not be required to this means any specialized doctor could do the surgery worldwide. Okay, and that the doctor, even if not physically present, can conduct the surgery. This could also save the traveling cost and traveling time, ensuring a quick response to medical problem. Moreover, using robot would mean higher accuracy, which would mean lower chances of errors, and therefore a higher chance of success, higher rate of success. So these are the points you can say, and you can also write the saver point. Yes, using robot would make the surgery more safe and hygiene. More hygienic भी लिख सकते हैं. Yeah, you can. So हम ये भी बोल सकते हैं more safe and more hygienic. Okay, so that's how you need to answer this question. Sir, actuator भी हो सकता है for part 1. Yes, actuator भी हो सकता है बिल्कुल हो सकता है. Give one disadvantage. So what could be a potential disadvantage of using a robot? We all know, right? What if I say that the robot malfunctions, so the surgery cannot continue. Okay, or I say that the internet connection is lost, so the surgery may not continue. Or I say that someone hacks it up. Okay, hacks it up. Okay, so if it's hacked, then this could mean it could further endanger the patient's life. So any of those points could be mentioned. Okay, so the hardware could malfunction, which could result in the surgery being incomplete. So you can talk about this, just one point with necessarily explanation, because it cannot continue, and you'll be good. Okay. Again, it's explain question. Remember, tomorrow, whenever you hear the word explain, guys, tip for tomorrow exam, wherever you see the explain keyword, understand that explain basically means what? That you need to write a point followed by this explanation. So keep this in your mind. Okay. Keep this in your mind. Guys, you not need to talk about unemployment. It says that you given disadvantage for performing surgery. So your point needs to be relevant to the surgery point. Don't be like, okay, it could result in unemployment. Also, unemployment is wrong, because the question says that the robot which has been created, that is also performed or conducted by or controlled by a doctor. So it's still a doctor doing it up, but he's not physically present. So it's not going to result in your unemployment at all. Moving on, question 8 says that one characteristic of the robot it has a mechanical structure. What are two others? So we remember we discussed what it has: electrical components, it is programmable, and it can move. So all those are perfectly fine. So I can say point number 1, it has mechanical to ho gaya. It has electrical components such as what? Sensors, microprocessors, and all, right? Then point number 2 would be that it is programmable. So point number 2 would be it is programmable, and point number 3, it can move. So these are 3 features you can write up here. And the 4th one is it has a mechanical structure, which has been even stated up here. You need to write any one out here. Say it. Moving on, it says give 2 advantages to the workers. Now you need to talk in terms of workers. So what could be an advantage to the worker? Definitely one advantage would be that they will not be required to lift heavy machinery. Okay, because they are moving car parts, so great chance it's heavy, so they are not required to lift heavy objects. And secondly, definitely, if they're not lifting heavy objects, there's a great chance that they don't injure themselves, right? So you can say they can prevent themselves from getting injured. That's your second point. Okay, so less prone to injury, exactly, less chances of injury. You can also talk about the fact that the workers do not need to perform any action in dangerous environments, or like do not need to perform the boring tasks, or like they can focus on more important skills and blah 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 stuff. Okay, part B says that the robots have the ability to automatically adapt their own processes. State the name of the ability. So whenever you hear the word that robot or any system automatically adapting to its own processes, this means you're talking about what? Machine learning, which basically is the concept where you learn data and then using that data you adapt to your own processes and make decisions ahead. Moving on, question 8 now says that what do we call it, that a farmer uses an automated robot to plant seeds. What is meant by the robot being automated? So when we say something is being automated, what does that mean? This means that the robot can perform the actions without human intervention. So the robot can perform the actions without any human intervention. Then part B says give 3 characteristics. So you're going to say that it has a mechanical structure, it has electrical components, it is programmable, and it can move. So you can write these 4 points and you'll be good to go. I'm not going to write it because we just did it. Part C says that a robot plants seeds and stops when it reaches a fence. It then turns and continues planting seeds. The robot uses a sensor and a microprocessor. Same thing, we're going to have a sensor, it's going to send data, it's going to be compared with the data stored in the microprocessor. If it's, let's say, less than the valid region, it's going to stop it. If not, it's going to turn it. If not, it's going to continue planting the seeds. So that's the whole thing. Okay, so it's again easy. We did a lot of them, so skip it. Part D now says give 2 advantages of the farmer using an automated robot to plant seeds. So to a farmer, what could be the advantages? Firstly, it's going to be more accurate. Secondly, robot does not need to take breaks. And thirdly, what do we call it? The farmer can perform some other tasks. Okay. So, and fourthly, he might not be required to pay labor costs at all. So I can say the robot is more accurate in planting the seeds. Point number one. And point number two would be the farmer would not be required to pay labor costs. And then you can also say the robot can work 24/7. So yes, so all these points are perfectly fine. Moving on, part E says give two disadvantages of the farmer using an automated system. So what could be the disadvantage? One disadvantage could be that they are expensive to purchase, they need consecutive maintenance which may be costly, and they may de-skill the farmers or the workers. Easy. So the initial cost is very high, and so it might be expensive to purchase. That's point number one. Point number two could be regular maintenance of robots is required, which is very costly and can therefore be very expensive. Third point could also be regarding how it can de-skill the farmers / the workers. Okay, so yeah, that's how you need to answer this. Part 9 now says again characteristics. We know what are the characteristics. One is programmable, so you can say it can move and it has a mechanical structure. Give two advantages to the company employees of using robot to manufacture large pieces of furniture. So if they want to again talk in regards to companies employees, so you can say that they do not need to lift heavy furniture. They can be protected from danger tasks. They do not need to do the repetitive tasks again. So all those points. So you can say employees, employees are not required to lift heavy objects. And point number two could be that employees, are not required to lift heavy objects, and they're not required to do boring tasks, and they can be protected from dangerous tasks. Point number three could also be regarding how you can say that employees can focus on non-repetitive tasks. Okay, you need to write any two. Part C now says give one disadvantage to the company. Again, you are stating the point that it's going to work 24/7. That's not going to give a benefit to an employee, right? That might give a benefit to the company owner. He wants the people to work 24/7. An employee would be like, okay, bhai, jitna hota hai, main aur nahi karna. So you need to think in regards to the company's employees. So that is why writing 24/7 or like saying that points which are relevant to the owner, that's irrelevant up here. So, so for example, if the question said give one disadvantage to the company's employees. So if you said something like expensive to buy, that's wrong. Because being expensive to buy, that is only relevant to the company's owner, not to the clients or not to the workers there. For them, you might say something like, okay, this may de-skill them. So to the company's owner, it could be that the maintenance, or you can say regular maintenance is required, which is very expensive. Okay, that's the valid point. And you can also talk about unemployment if you're talking in regards to what the workforce or the employees. And that basically marks the end of this set of questions. Okay, so now let me bring in the third type of questions. Then once we are done with that, we're going to take the Maghrib Namaz break. Okay, so yeah, अभी तो ओनर की बात है, तो ओनर वाले में आप रेगुलर मेंटेनेंस, आप पैसे और उन चीज़ों की बातें कर सकते हैं. सर तो एम्प्लॉयज़ को डिसएडवांटेजेस क्या होंगे? एम्प्लॉयज़ को होंगी दैट दे माइट गेट अनएम्प्लॉयड, दे माइट गेट de-skilled. ये दो मेन डिसएडवांटेजेस होंगे. सही है सर. मिनिमम स्लीप बिफोर एग्जाम, एटलीस्ट इंश्योर कि you sleep 7 to 8 hours today, at least. I would recommend not studying anything after 11 p.m. नमाज पढ़ के अल्लाह से दुआ करो and just go and sleep. That's it, no more. Okay, I'm just gonna come up live at like 10:30. बस वो आखिरी चीज वो आपने देखनी है. Last thing should be that live session. Like nothing should be done after that. That should be the very extreme last thing you're doing. And then after that, just sleep. Trust your own hard work and you'll be good to go. So let's do this one question. So it says that hospital has computers and technology that it uses when caring for its patients. One computer is an expert system that is used to help diagnose a patient's illness. The doctor inspects the patient's systems into an interface and a diagnosis output. Describe how the expert system decides the diagnosis. So how does it work? There's an inference engine which decides what questions to ask based upon the previous input. Okay, and then the the symptoms which are inputted are then compared with the data in the knowledge base, and then it applies the rules based logic to the knowledge base to decide the diagnosis. Simple. So I'm going to say the inference engine is used to decide on what questions to ask from the user. Let me extend this. The questions depends upon the previous answers from the user. Point number two. So you sort of had 2 points. Then you're going to say perhaps 3 points. My bad. And then you're going to say that the symptoms inputted by the user are then compared with the data in the knowledge base. And once we are comparing it, now we're going to make the decision. So I'm going to say that we're going to apply the rule base to the knowledge base to find what's the final problem. And then rules base will be applied to the knowledge base. So like the data in the knowledge base plus those if statements. Okay, the knowledge base to diagnose the the medical problem. Yeah. So yeah. Perfect. Let's move on. So part D now says that the PLO uses an artificial intelligence to navigate its way around the field, and that explain how does a PLO makes use of AI for this purpose. So it's similar to saying the same which I just mentioned earlier. You can say that it might make use of machine learning. It could gather the data from plowing. It can then use that data to adapt to its processes. It can then it could then avoid obstacles. It could make fewer mistakes. It could go through the most efficient route and all that point. So you can say it could make use of machine learning. Why machine learning? Because machine learning comes under AI. Okay, it can gather data from plowing, which could, oh my bad, low. So yeah, I was saying, never mind, whatever it is. So you basically it gathers data from plowing, which is then used to adapt to its own processes. This could allow the system to navigate the whole farm, navigate the way around the field. It would therefore make errors, and would be able to know the most efficient route. It would also be aware of any obstacles on the field. There you go. 4-mark question. We wrote more than 4 points, and that's how you need to. Okay. So yeah. Question 3 says an expert system can be used to diagnose an error with a robot vacuum cleaner. Circle 3 components that are part of an expert system. Knowledge base is operating system is not, firewall is not, server is not, printer is not, actuator, inference engine is, and rules basis. Part C says that explain how the robot vacuum cleaner can make use of machine learning. Same point as before, you just need to say that it could gather data, adapt to its own processes, then can find out where are obstacles, which places are more dirtier, what could be a possible or like the most efficient route to a vacuum on a room and all that stuff. So I can say it could gather data from the process of vacuuming, which can then be used to adapt to its own processes, and let me extend it. This can allow the system to navigate the shortest path, or the most efficient path for a vacuum cleaner. Okay, my bad. It's basically, I guess, vacuum cleaner for a vacuum cleaner to pass, for a vacuum cleaner to a room. It can also detect obstacles and can find out which places are more dirtier, clean first. सर इट कैन अवॉइड ह्यूमंस का मार्क मिल जाएगा नहीं मिलेगा नहीं मिलेगा आपसे वो पूछ ही नहीं रहे वो उन्हें पता है कि इसमें ह्यूमंस नहीं है इन्हें पता है इसमें ह्यूमंस नहीं है सही है तो क्या कहते हैं आपने सीधा का सीधा क्या बताना है आपने ये बताना है कि मशीन लर्निंग काम करती कैसे है दिस इज द एग्जैक्ट आंसर दिस इज द एग्जैक्ट सिंपल पैराग्राफ which can work everywhere you just say everywhere if you open up all those marking schemes you just say that it gathers data from the process it uses that data to adapt to its own processes and then it navigates through the place it finds the places where obstacles are it finds the most efficient path बस आप ये points याद कर लो and सीधा सीधा आपको पूरे नंबर मिल जाएंगे so that's everywhere you're going to use this question number 10 says a garage uses an expert system to help diagnose any problems with car that needs repair the expert system as an example of an artificial intelligence describe what is meant by an AI so what is AI AI is the way we said is the simulation of intelligent behavior, right? So it's like when you have the ability to adapt and the ability to reason. Simple. So I'm going to say it's the AI is the simulation of intelligent behaviors in a computer system where it has the ability to both reason and adapt. Both reason and adapt. Write this and you're going to get perfect 2 by 2. Part B says, a car has a problem with its braking system, so it is brought onto a garage. Explain how the expert system operates and how it is used to help diagnose the problem. So now you need to explain the whole process. You need to talk about that the user will enter the data into interface. The interface will decide which questions to ask by using the previous answers given. Then the interface will basically diagnose the solution by comparing the user's input with that in the knowledge base and the rules base. And then it's going to calculate which option is like, the most valid for it. And then that option will be outputted. Simple. And then you might also have an explanation system that always, if you remember the diagram where I said at the top we have an explanation system that's going to provide a reasoning as to how you reached it. That's everything. So I'm going to say the user will provide input at the user interface. Point number 1, the user interface will ask questions from the user based upon their previous answers. The inference engine will okay, let me extend this first. So the inference engine will then compare the answers with that of the knowledge base and will apply the rules based to it to find the final problem or to diagnose because we have the word diagnose up here to diagnose the final problem. This would be then outputted to the user and the explanation as to how the solution was reached would then be shared in the explanation system as to how the solution was reached would be shared in the explanation system. That is everything you need to write this and you're going to get 5 by 5. Okay, so you see every expert system, every ML question, every AI question is very much repetitive. That is how you need to answer it. Question 8 says a farmer uses an automated robot to plant seeds. The robot is adapted to have machine learning capabilities. Explain how will this improve. So now, how can it improve if it has ML, machine learning? Easy scene. You just need to tell it can remember which route to take. It can remember where an obstacle is, so it could avoid it. So all those points. It can remember what's the most efficient route to take. So yeah, it can also remember where an obstacle is so that it could prevent it, and all that stuff. So yeah, we're just going to write these points and you're going to get them. So yeah, sir, inference engine लिख सकते हैं. Inference engine यहाँ पे लिखा है ना मैंने, ये देखो inference engine है ना. देखो इन्फ्लुएंस इंजन। सर शुरू से स्ट्रीम नहीं दिख रही, वो दिखेगी जब स्ट्रीम एक दफा एंड हो जाएगी, सही है, उसके बाद। So question number 6, last question, and then we're gonna move on to a small break again. So a car repair garage system uses an expert system. Complete the description about the operation of the expert system. Use the terms in the list. An expert system has a dash which has a list of facts. So it is basically having a knowledge base, right? So it has a knowledge base that contains a list of facts. The dash applies the dash to the dash. So you basically have the knowledge, the rules base. The rules base basically applies the, let me see, the rules base basically applies the question base to the knowledge base to reach and diagnosis. It should be this, or Balkani, it shouldn't be this. It should be basically that the inference engine should be applying the knowledge base basically to your what do we call should be applying the rules base to your knowledge base to get to the answer. So you can say the inference engine applies the rules base to your knowledge base to reach a diagnosis for the repair of the car, and the user data provides data to the system using what, using the user interface. So okay guys, interface, you see. So, interface, that's your answer. Part B says an expert system has machine learning capabilities, and describe what is meant by machine learning capabilities. So for marker you need to write 4 points up here. So you need to come and do this. So break के बाद, yes, break के बाद होगा. So what do you need to write? You're going to say that it can adapt to its own processes, it can be trained, and that is going to analyze patterns, and then based upon that it's going to vary its future decisions and all that stuff. So yeah. So by the way, is this even O-level question? Crazy, this question. I haven't seen such a question, by the way. So it's good you are looking at this question. So machine learning will gather the data and adapt to its own processes. Okay, adapt to its own processes. Then this time you won't talk about how it's going to improve. Rather, it's asking what is meant by its capability. So you need to talk about what is meant by its capability. So like you can say that it can train itself, it can analyze patterns. Okay, so based upon that, so I can say that the algorithm or the machine learning algorithm could be trained itself by analyzing patterns in the data. Then you can talk about the fact that for every action it takes, it's going to retrain the model itself based upon the feedback. So if it's like you did this right, so you're going to understand that next time I also have to do it this way. If it does not do it the right way, it basically does the other way thing. So like it's like, okay, I had to take left, I took right, so next time it's going to take left, and this would influence its future decision. It's going to retrain and this would influence its future decision making. Okay, that is it. So it's 1 point, second point, third point, and fourth point. Yeah, so you're gonna get 4 by 4 for this. Okay, that is everything. You can also write one other point that the machine can learn and retrain the model itself without any human intervention. That is it. Okay, and it is a form of / subset of a, yes, if you want. Whose point was that? Kiran said that. That's also valid. Say so. It's a form of AI. That's also valid. You can write all these points, and writing them will get you full marks. Okay. So that is it for chapter number 6. We covered up the whole course. We did all the practice questions. We did enough questions. We did like 6, 4, 5, 6. We did like 16, 17 questions. Okay. So that is it for chapter number 6. Let's have a 10 minutes break again. You're gonna come back at 7 or 10. Namaz pad lo, pani wagera pee lo, and then we're gonna quickly do chapter number 5 questions, and then after that we're gonna end. It is a hard question. Yep, I feel like this is a hard question. This is a hard question. It does not store successful. It basically sees if, let's say, it did something wrong, it's going to tell itself that, okay, I did this thing wrong, so next time I'm going to avoid it. So next time it does not do that thing. So yeah, that is how you need to do it. So guys, I'm literally cooked, but yeah, chalo koi nahi. Let's have a break for 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back and complete chapter number 5 Topical. Okay, yeah. So see you guys after at 7:10, inshallah. Assalamualaikum everybody. We're back. Let's start off. Let me just send a message in the chat box. Okay, we are starting off and then start with them. I'm audible, right? If anybody could kindly confirm in the chat box so that we can start off without wasting any further time. So I wanted to message in the groups because someone of you was saying, group pe bata diya kare, please. With the third group. So we sort of have, so, perfect. Just give me a second, guys. Just give me a second. All right, yeah, let's get back to it. All right, Assalamu alaikum, and I hope कुछ हद तक break हो गई अच्छे से, and let's start off with chapter number 5 questions. Okay, so from this point onwards, I will not sort of extend it a lot, maybe 20-25 minutes max, inshallah. I'm going to rush through those chapter 5 questions, 3 questions per document. We're going to just do 9 questions and that's it. Okay, so let me just download this and we'll start off kar lete hain. Sahi hai? Crazy session, man. This was low-key such a crazy session. But I hope that it's helpful enough and that you guys get to learn something. That's the main purpose, right? So if you guys are learning something, that is what matters. So if you're not learning, then phir fayda nahi hua na. So let's start off with the first question. So it says that you need to basically draw a diagram to show how the web page is requested for the patient. So a patient uses a web page to log into their account, blah, 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 blah. The patient enters the URL for web pages into their browser. So you need to complete that. So you basically need to explain how you sort of get this whole web server, right? So you need to make the diagram of the URL or DNS server diagram. So how do you do it? It's pretty much easy. Your patient computer, it first and foremost sends a request to the DNS. Okay, so we have something known as DNS. What's a DNS? It's domain name server. Is that part where you have all the URLs alongside their corresponding IP addresses. So you send the URL and it basically sends you the IP address of that server. So like you're trying to find google.com, so you cannot access the server of google.com just by writing www.google.com. You need to search for www.google.com IP address. So you find that IP address in DNS, and then based upon that DNS, based upon that IP address, you then search for that IP address, and this allows you to basically go to the web server. So this then allows you to access that web server where you have all the files of that website, and then from the website you basically download all the files and they come to your browser. So you then write that, okay, this is my web page data. Web page data. And one thing here to note is that sometimes one of the DNS does not have the data. Let's say I have a DNS which does not have sort of information about storing it up. So how are you going to store it there? So in that case where you, let's say, have a DNS which does not have the IP address for the URL you are searching, it's then going to search it in a different DNS. So you can sort of extend this and maybe make another DNS too, and you can write that if IP address not found, if IP address not found in DNS1, then go to another DNS. Then go to another DNS. And that's how you need to answer this. Okay, so that's everything you need to know up here, and boom, moving on. Question 2 says that you need to complete the table. So you have some terms and its descriptions, and you need to tell what each of them are. So the first one is it's a collection of web pages. So it's always whenever we hear the word collection of web pages, see the Zen we are talking about World Wide Web. Okay, moving on. The second says the address given to a device when it connects to the internet. So when it connects to the internet, it's basically your IP address. So like it changes every time you connect to the internet, right? Then it says what's a web browser. So you need to basically explain what's a web browser. So a web browser is basically that software that allows you to access web pages, right? It's a software that allows you allows a user to access web pages by how? By translating, or you can use the word rendering HTML pages. That's how you need to answer this. Moving on, third one says the hardware that stores a database of matching websites and their IP address. So we just made it, right? It's your DNS, domain name server. So you're gonna write domain name server. If you forgot the name, guys, then just write the short form. Don't write incorrect name, please. That would be a problem, okay? Yeah. A type of hardware that can be used to prevent a DDoS attack. So a DDoS attack basically happens on what? A DDoS attack always happens on a server, right? So we have a proxy server which basically prevents a DDoS attack. Proxy server. And then the last one says you need to tell us about hacking. So what's hacking? Hacking is basically when you try to gain illegal or unauthorized access to a computer system. Gaining illegal and unauthorized access to a computer system. So that's how you need to answer this question. Moving on, the third question says that you need to complete the statement about cookies. So cookies are small text files that are stored by a dash. So it's always stored by your web browser. Okay, so you say that they are basically stored by my web browser. Dash cookies are dash text files that are deleted when the dash is closed. So your temporary cookies, which are basically known as the session cookies. Session cookies are those what do we call it, permanent, what do we call, not permanent, temporary text files that are closed the moment you what do we call it, turn off the web browser or the session. So you can say web browser session cookies are temporary text files. We have a temporary word up here somewhere, yeah, and then we say that are deleted when the, now up here you can write both, when the session is closed, or you can also say when the browsing app, we do have browsing app, right, web browser, yeah, so web browser is closed. So whatever you write, you're gonna get marks, because both of them are perfectly valid up here. Then on the other end, the second type of cookies which we have in our syllabus, those are known as the persistent cookies. So you say persistent cookies are it's basically persistent with an E, my bad. Cookies are basically permanent text files that are stored on a user's secondary storage until they are manually deleted or they get expired. So do we have expired? Yep, we do. So persistent cookies stay on your device until either you delete it or they have a specific expiry date. So when that comes up, then it gets expired. Give 3 examples of the usages of cookies. So where could be a cookie use? You have multiple places. You can store it to use it to store user preferences, login details, payment details, personal details, all that stuff. So you can write any of them. So store users, oh by the way I forgot, आप लोग की messages नजर ही नहीं आ रही. Store, sir, session cookies are stored on RAM. No, they are stored in the browser. हाँ बल्कि हाँ एक ही बात है कि if it's temporarily stored in the browser, this means वो उस time RAM के अंदर ही हो, because the moment you turn off the browser, so the browser gets deleted and removed from RAM, so your persistent session cookies are also removed from RAM. So it stores users preferences, that's your point number 1. Secondly, stores users payment details, and third, stores users login details. Okay, so yeah. Then question 4 says state what is meant by a URL. So a URL stands for uniform resource located, or perhaps, now if anybody writes uniform resource locator, you know what, you're gonna get 0 marks, because the question clearly mentions that the student enters the URL. This means they expect something else from you. So you need to basically explain what a URL is. So you can say that it's a text-based address for a website. So a text-based address for a website. Identify two part of a URL. So a URL is basically made up of three things. You have the protocol, which is the HTTP, HTTPS. Then you have the domain name. The domain name basically is www.google.com, and file name is that after slash you might search Pakistan. So www is .google.com/Pakistan. So you can write any two out there. You can write the protocol, which is my HTTP, HTTPS. You can write your domain name, which is basically the whole www.google.com, and you can write file name, which is maybe I can say that .com के बाद when we have something like .com के बाद when we have /Pakistan. So this /Pakistan is my file name. Okay. So yeah, just keep it in mind. .com is not included, by the way. It's only /Pakistan. So a student enters the URL into a piece of software that then displays the web pages. So what is that piece of software? We all know, we are using it every time. It's the web browser. And then it says draw an annotated diagram to show how the web page is located and retrieved to be displayed. So you just need to make the same diagram which we drew at the start. There you need to say that the web browser is going to go to the DNS. The DNS is going to see if it finds the IP address. If it does not find it, it's going to go to another DNS. If it found it, it's going to return the IP address. Then using that IP address, it's going to request the web server, and the web server is then going to send the web pages for the web browser to then translate. Okay, so that's how you need to do it. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to just skip it. Let's do this last question and then let's move on to the next type of chapter 5 question. It says a company has a website and that users use the internet and the World Wide Web to access the website. Describe the differences between the internet and www. So internet is the infrastructure, remember, and World Wide Web is the collection of web pages. So it's like www operates under the infrastructure of internet. So I can say the internet is an infrastructure, whereas World Wide Web is a collection of web pages. Yeah, you just need to write this and you're going to get 2 by 2. Okay, it's just the difference. Then it says URL has 3 parts. We just saw it. It's your domain name, file name, and your protocol. Okay. Then it says give that one function of a web browser is to provide an address bar. Give 3 other functions. So your browser always has a lot of things to do. It has it can record users history, it can store bookmarks, it can have a navigator to navigate here and there, it can store cookies, it has it can display a web page, it can have a home page. So you can write any of the third point. Okay, so maybe provides navigation tools, and boom, done with it. So yeah, so ये 3 points लिखने will be good to go. What's the definition of an internet? So an internet is basically an infrastructure which basically allows you to access networks. It's like a combination of different networks. You can also talk about cookies up here. So point 4 could be to store cookies. Exactly. Internet is sort of a network of networks. Okay, so we're done with this. You guys can practice the remaining questions on your own now. It's just to give you a quick idea of how chapter 5 questions could be. Now I'm going to go to the second type of questions from chapter 5, which is basically the digital currency one. A lot of students have been facing problems with digital currency, and the thing is, digital currency has been very, very rarely tested. Okay, like almost very rarely. Like in the past paper session I've conducted, I feel like digital currency might be the least asked question. So even up here we only have 2 questions. Yeah, so let's do them. So it says that the company uses a digital currency to purchase a new car. What is meant by a digital currency? A digital currency is that one which only exists electronically. So I'm going to say a currency that only exists electronically. If anybody uses the word virtual up here, that's also fine. Okay, virtual. It's better to write electronically. Then it says that the digital currency uses a process that involves a digital ledger. The ledger has a time-stamped transactions that cannot be altered. Give the name of this process. So the process which has stamped transactions that cannot be altered and is a digital ledger, such a digital ledger is basically known as blockchain. So the answer to this is basically blockchain. Okay, moving on. Question 2 now says that digital currency can be used to pay for products and services. Digital currencies are often tracked using digital ledgers. give to other features of a digital currency. So what are your features? It exists only electronically. It can be both centralized and decentralized. If it's a decentralized system, we're talking about bitcoins and stuff. If it's a centralized system, it's all about this digital banking we have. And you can say that it's also encrypted. So it only exists electronically. And then second could be it can be centralized. Third point could be it can be decentralized. Fourth point could be it is encrypted. सर डिजिटल करेंसी और ब्लॉकचेन डिफरेंट चीज नहीं है, नहीं डिजिटल करेंसी और ब्लॉकचेन में सिर्फ ये फर्क है कि डिजिटल करेंसी सेंट्रलाइज होती है, ब्लॉकचेन जो होती है वो आपकी सेंट्रलाइज नहीं होती. तो ये जो क्या कहते हैं डिजिटल करेंसी, ये प्रॉपर प्रोसेस को बोलते हैं ना, प्रॉपर प्रोसेस लाइक एवरीवेयर वेयर एवर वी हैव टू मेक अ ट्रांजैक्शन जिसके अंदर आप फिजिकल कैश को नहीं यूज करते, दैट्स अ डिजिटल करेंसी. अब उसके अंदर जब आप सेंट्रलाइज मैनर पे जाते हैं विच इज लाइक ऑल दीज मीजान एंड एबीएल यूबीएल बैंकिंग एप्स वी हैव, दैट्स आवर नॉर्मल व्हाट डू वी कॉल इट कन्वेंशनल बैंकिंग, तो वो आपकी डिजिटल बैंकिंग में आ जाती है. एंड जहां पे आपके वो सेंट्रलाइज नहीं रहते लाइक ब्लॉकचेन लाइक योर बिटकॉइंस एंड ऑल, दैट गोज इनटू द ब्लॉकचेन नेटवर्क. ओके सर सीन ये है कि एनी टॉपिक्स नॉट बीइंग यार आ भी सकते हैं, वी कैन नॉट से एनीथिंग. सो आइडेंटिफाई द प्रोसेस दैट यूजेस द डिजिटल लेजर टू ट्रैक द यूज ऑफ अ डिजिटल करेंसी. अगेन whenever you hear the word digital ledger and then tracking and of a digital currency, remember in your course only there is one type of tracking, only one type of tracking for digital currency, that's blockchain. So if it asks you for that, just write blockchain and you would be good to go. Okay, perfect. सर रीड हुजैफा's मैसेज. सर एक एनोटेड डायग्राम का क्वेश्चन है ब्लॉकचेन का 2024 अक्टूबर वर्जन 11. क्वेश्चन नंबर भी बता दो कौन सा है, फिर उसके बाद देखेंगे. Yasir, once the stream ends, you would be able to see the whole stream again. It's basically when the stream is going on, तो उसके दौरान आप नहीं access कर सकते the previous stuff. That's the reason. So we're done with this. Let me just do the 5.3 part and then उसके बाद we can do that question. Okay. Sir, proof of work नहीं होगा. See, अब देखो if something has not been tested, that's something else. You should know it generally, but अब कुछ कह नहीं सकते. अभी तक तो नहीं टेस्ट हुआ. Question 8, चलो keep it up here, बाद में करते हैं इसको. Such small change for embedded, you should be aware of the advantages and disadvantages for embedded system. Then in the previous one, what if we write blockchain? In the previous one, where previous one? These two questions. Where do you want to write blockchain? We even wrote blockchain up here. अच्छा blockchaining तो नहीं होता कोई चीज, blockchain होता है. ब्लॉकचेनिंग कोई चीज नहीं. ब्लॉकचेनिंग ये पूरा प्रोसेस है ऑफ हाउ डेटा इज बेसिकली एवरी ट्रांजैक्शन दैट टेक्स प्लेस. सो एवरी इन सिंपल वर्ड्स अगर आपको मैं ब्लॉकचेन बताऊं, ब्लॉकचेन इज लाइक एवरी ट्रांजैक्शन टेक्स प्लेस, अ ब्लॉक इज क्रिएटेड. ओके, सो दिस ब्लॉक बेसिकली जॉइंस द चेन ऑफ अदर ब्लॉक्स which are other transactions. So like मैंने एक पैसे किसी को भेजे, that was one transaction. मैंने फिर भेजे, that was another transaction. मैंने फिर किया, that was another transaction. And that this eventually forms a chain which we call as a blockchain. Now this blockchain is decentralized. इसको कोई access नहीं कर सकता. It is very secure. You can read the book and my notes to further understand all that stuff. But ये चीज़ है. Sir, can we write proof of work in part B? No, you cannot. Proof of work is not a process to track the use. आप ट्रैकिंग आपकी सिर्फ ब्लॉकचेन करती है, सही है, सिर्फ ब्लॉकचेन करती है. That's it. So your block is created using hash values and all that stuff. Hash value is like a unique identification code of it. Unique identification code of it. All right, let's move on. So हो गया डाउनलोड या नहीं? So I guess हो गया. So we're going to do some cybersecurity questions before ending it up. 4 or 5 questions. So I'm going to explain this quickly, that whenever you get this question on protocols and SSLs, the way it happens is that the question says a patient is making a payment through a secure connection, and that a secure connection is created using SSL. Explain how does the SSL works. So for such questions, we're going to say encrypted connection will be established. So yeah, You might say that an algorithm would be used to create what do we call it, like you can say asymmetric encryption could be used. You can say that the web browser is going to ask the web server to identify itself. Once they ask them to identify itself, the web server is going to send a digital certificate. The digital certificate is then authenticated. If it is valid, the access would be provided, secure transaction will begin. If it's not, the connection will not be created because it's not secure. Say, so that's everything you need to write. So if I want to answer it, you're gonna say encryption. What could be the answer of the role of router? Router का role यही है to navigate what do we call it, packets, to send them to the fastest available route. So you're gonna say encrypted connection will be established. The browser will ask the web server to identify itself. The web server will then send a digital certificate to validate itself. If the browser was able to authenticate the certificate, the connection would be established. If it wasn't able to authenticate it, the connection will not be established. That is everything you have. See, that is everything whenever they ask you for like payment and in terms of SSL protocol. So that's how you do the SSL protocol. So retrieval of web pages is also in chapter 3. Yes, it is. Moving on, this is another question. It says that a finance company is concerned that a hacker may perform a brute force attack to gain access. Describe how the hacker would perform a brute force attack. So for a brute force attack is when a person is consecutively trying again and again using different combinations to guess the password. Okay, and they may even use a software for this. So you can say the hacker would try to guess the password by consecutively trying different combinations of the password. Clear? बस आपने ये लिखना है. And you can also write they can make use of a software for this too. Software for this. That's everything you need to write. Just give me a second minute. I forgot my AirPods are not charged. Let me charge my AirPods. So let me put this one to charging. Okay, then it says give 3 cybersecurity solutions that could prevent. So solutions and to prevent a brute force attack. So brute force attack could be prevented by having stronger passwords. It could be prevented by having two-step verification. It could be having prevented by biometric too. So all that stuff. Or you can also say that you may limit the number of attempts, valid attempts. So all those are valid. So you can say stronger password, biometric verification, biometric entry, and the third could be or biometric password maybe, and third could be two-step verification. No, firewall would be wrong. Firewall has nothing. Remember, firewall is only going to help when something is coming into your computer from the internet. Firewall only helps when data is coming from internet. If guessing password has nothing to do with internet, firewall is when something externally is coming into your computer through downloading path. So therefore, firewall would be wrong up here. Again, this is an SSL question. Let's keep it up. Again, DDoS diagram. So let me connect my graphic tablet again. Let's make this up. So, if the question asks you, if the questions ask chapter 6 कब पढ़ेंगे अब्दुल्ला बलोच भाई, आप काफी जल्दी आए हो क्लास के अंदर, तो अब क्या कर सकते हैं उसका. chapter 6 हमने कर ली है जानी. So yeah, it says that draw and annotate the diagram to show the process of DDoS. So DDoS का जो process है, it's pretty much बार-बार इसका question आता है. What happens is you have a third party user. Okay, third party user. This third party user they basically sends or transmits malware to a computer. So yeah, and then that computer sort of becomes a bot, okay, computer bot, and that computer bots then sort of sends requests to, what do we call it, ये आपके bots हो गए, bots, and all these bots are then sending requests to the web server to ensure कि यार web server fail हो जाए. So this diagram has been tested like more than once if I'm not wrong, क्योंकि मुझे तो याद होगी ये diagram बनाते बनाते. And then you can talk about that the web server can accommodate a set number of requests, and if there are a lot of requests it may crash. If there are a lot of requests it may crash. Lot of requests it may get crash. सर मैंने यही डायग्राम बनाया था मार्क्स में, लेकिन 0 मार्क्स में. वो आपके टीचर को पता ही नहीं है फिर डायग्राम बनाना कैसे. अब मैं क्या करूँ, यही चीज आपने बनानी है, बिल्कुल एग्जैक्ट सेम टू सेम यही चीज बनानी है. Requests, and you can say that this is basically a botnet which has like a multiple combination of bots. So multiple bots are sending requests at once. Bots, and बस ये आपने डायग्राम बनाना है. सही है. So yeah, and you can also write one other thing कि the malware turns the computer into bots. सर थर्ड पार्टी के अलावा हैकर लिख सकते हैं? नहीं. हैकर और DDoS कराने में फर्क है. A person who might be hacking, that's a different person than someone who wants to do DDoS attack. We think anyone who's trying to harm us is a hacker. No, hacker is the one who only wants to get unauthorized access. This isn't unauthorized access. Therefore, you cannot write this thing. Okay. Sir, is the annotated diagram of the role of router and package? No, it's not. It's different. Identify a solution. We did for the router, we did it in yesterday class, and packet switching का जो भी वो connection वाला है वो आप कर लो. Identify a solution that can help prevent DDoS. It's pretty much simple. You need to make use of a proxy server. So a proxy server is something which then comes up here in front of it to protect itself. We did this question, remember, while discussing it. Okay, so it can protect it, this proxy server, and while it's being protected, only this can get harmed. Web server is still going to be safe. So proxy server is the solution. Here we go. We have a firewall question coming up. It says a company owner also installs a firewall to help protect from the network from hackers and malware. Explain how the firewall operates to protect the network. So a firewall basically sets a criteria using which it then checks everything that is coming in and out, and it's going to check that if anything meets the criteria, it's going to allow it. If it does not, it's not going to allow it. And then we can say that it could also have a specific set of IP addresses which if they want they can sort of block also. Okay. So can we write firewall? नहीं भाई. Firewall this is web server, guys. Firewall only acts on your computer. Firewall is for your computer. Web server के लिए कोई firewall नहीं होता. Web server के लिए जो firewall की तरह चीज होती है, that's known as proxy server. सही है. Remember this one thing. आप लोग ये confuse करो रहे हो. Firewall is only used for computer. So अगर यहाँ पे computer की बात होती है, firewall valid होता. ये web server है. Web server के लिए कोई firewall नहीं होता. Servers के लिए firewall की तरह proxy server चीज बनाई जाती है. Okay. So you need to explain how does the firewall operates. You're gonna talk about that. So we're gonna quickly say that a criteria will be set by the firewall, and every and then the firewall will examine the criteria, and I will examine the incoming traffic based upon that criteria. Point number 2. Then you're going to write, if the traffic does not match the criteria, it is not going to allow it to enter the computer. If it does, it will allow the data to come into computer. And then you can also write, the firewall also manages a list of blacklisted IP addresses. Blacklist से मुझे वो याद आ गया, Need for Speed Most Wanted OG game. The firewall also manages a list of blacklisted IP addresses from which data could be stopped from entering. So you can say like certain hackers के जो वो होंगे ना IP वो block होंगे, from which data could be blocked. So hackers cannot access it. The data will be filtered out. That's everything you need to write. Then it says give two examples of malware that the firewall can help protect the network. So firewall only protects you from stuff that can come into your computer online. So online क्या क्या आ सकते हैं? Virus can come, worm can come, Trojan horse can come, spyware can come, adware can come, even ransomware can come. So you can write all that stuff. So virus, and then you can write Trojan horse. Okay, or you can also one another thing. When we talk about malware is a cybersecurity threat. We have multiple cybersecurity threats. उसमें एक threat है malware. And then there are 6 types of malware: virus, Trojan horse, ransomware, adware, spyware, and एक आखिरी भी अभी मेरे ज़हन से निकल गया. But those comes under malware. So if a question asks you to discuss cybersecurity threat, तो cybersecurity threat में if you wrote virus या Trojan horse, you're gonna get a 0. You cannot talk about virus and Trojan horse in as a cybersecurity threat. Malware is a cybersecurity threat, and then if it asks you to explain multiple types of malwares, तब आप virus, Trojan horse और ये चीजें भी करते हैं. Done with this. Let's do this one last question before ending it up. So malware can be used to corrupt data stored on computer. Tick one box to show which cybersecurity threat is not a type of malware. So phishing, ransomware तो है, virus भी है, worm भी है. Phishing is a cybersecurity threat, but it's not a type of malware. Remember that. So if a question asks you for cybersecurity threat, you may discuss phishing, farming या फिर malware. Malware में फिर further types है ransomware, virus, worm and all that stuff. It says then identify one other example of malware other than the given. So other than this we might write spyware maybe. Then part C says identify the type of software that is used to find and remove malware. So generally we have what? We have antivirus, but remember antivirus only removes virus. When the question asks you to remove malware, you need to write anti-malware software. Okay. सही है. So do logic gates come in paper number 1? No, पहले आते थे, अब नहीं आते. There you go guys. That is it. 7:51 p.m. back to back. I don't know, that was like 3 hours class at this point. We covered everything in great detail. I was not planning on doing the class revision for chapter number 6 at all. But yeah, you guys forced me and I was like, chalo, aap log itna bol hi rahe ho, so let's do it. And alhamdulillah, we did it. Ho gayi class. That's everything for today then. So uses of proxy servers and firewall same, but remember proxy server is used for a server, web server. Firewall is used for a computer. कोई guest paper नहीं है guys, कोई मेरा guest paper नहीं है. There is nothing like a guest paper. सब पढ़ के जाओ. चैप्टर 3 पे फोकस ज्यादा करना, बट बाकी कोई गेस्ट पेपर शेपर नहीं है. ये जो टीचर गेस्ट पेपर बनाते हैं, मुझे तो लगता है सिर्फ व्यूज के लिए बनाते हैं और कोई चीज नहीं है. सोशल इंजीनियरिंग साइबर सिक्योरिटी का थ्रेट है. सोशल इंजीनियरिंग यस इट इज, बट आपसे जब सोशल साइबर सिक्योरिटी थ्रेट्स पूछे ना, सो इट्स बेटर टू राइट मैलवेयर, इट्स बेटर टू राइट फिशिंग, फार्मिंग. ये 3 लिखो. दीज आर द मोस्ट कॉमनली इजियर वन. सही है. ये जो अभी आप बोल रहे हो ना, प्रोज एंड कॉन्स ऑफ रोबोट्स इन सर्जरी, आई गेस ये क्वेश्चन हमने किए अभी. guys, didn't we solve this question? I guess we did. We did the same question. Murtaza bhai, no guest paper, nothing. Same goes to Ahmed. उस FIR अगर सवाल अच्छा ना हुआ ना, फिर देखना इस दफा मैं नहीं छोड़ूंगा तुम्हें. Winter 24 question paper 11. So let me open it up. Question 8. Question number 8. Draw and annotate a diagram to show how a payment transaction is made using digital currency and blockchain. चलो, अच्छा सवाल है, छोड़ देते हैं आपको, क्या याद रखोगे. So let me just copy this question and paste it up here. So there you go. So this will be the last question for our paper number 1 marathons, inshallah. सही है. And yeah, so it's asking you to basically create a diagram that works in a way कि वो blockchain network के साथ connect हो. अब होता है इस तरह कि you have a device, okay, like if I'm making a payment from my computer. So this device sends first and foremost reaches to a digital ledger. So digital ledger is like a banking company for me. Okay. So I'm going to go to a banking company, right, to make some transaction. So like I go to a company. So this company is my digital ledger. When I make a transaction in a digital company, they create a block. Okay. So they create a block, and a block is created which has, so like you write the name block, and this block basically has something known as hash value within it. So a block is created, and within the block you have the block hash, which is your unique identification code. And once you are done with this, now once this block has been created, you then add the block to whatever transaction you are doing. So like you connect this block which you just created to what, to basically a chain of network. So I'm going to add it to a blockchain. So बस ये आपने diagram बना ली है, blockchain. And now if you want to, you need to make it a bit neater though, but yeah, you need to now explain what's happening. So you're going to say that customer is first of all encrypting the data. So customer data is encrypted, and then you say that the transaction details are basically sent. So payment data sent, data sent to ledger. And then what the ledger does is that they what do you call it, create a transaction. So you write transaction is stored in a block, and then you write the block is then added to a blockchain. All right guys, that is it. Sahi, that is everything. We have everything covered. The stream is just going to end, and फिर उसके बाद it's up to you. सारी stream available होगी, जिससे जहाँ से जो जितना देखना है वो करे, and आपको अच्छे से समझ आ जाए. So that's it for today. So when the block is full, यार वो एक ही बात है. So when the block is full का यही मतलब है कि the block has been fully prepared. So like it has the hash value, it has everything, then it is added. So the block is ready, then it is added. इस तरह कर लो, सही है, to a blockchain. वो कोई चीजें नहीं बतानी, सेंडर रिसीवर आईपी एड्रेस प्रूफ ऑफ वर्क, बस आपके मेन जो चीज है वो ये कि ब्लॉक बनेगा, एंड द ब्लॉक बेसिकली इंक्लूड्स अ ब्लॉक हैश. दैट्स द इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग. सही है. That is it for today, everybody. मेरी बस होगी at this point, having a class for over 3 hours. I'm gonna come live inshallah at 10 p.m. 10 की तरफ, सही है. That's gonna be the live final session. I'm gonna come live on my Instagram inshallah, live on Instagram, and I'm gonna give you guys some final tips and tricks as to how to proceed with tomorrow's paper. So till then जितनी पढ़ाई करनी है करो. 10 बजे की उस सेशन के बाद आई एक्सपेक्ट कि सब लोग आराम से बस नमाज पढ़ के सो जाए. सही है. That is everything for today. I hope the session was great and that you got a chance to learn. And now I'm going to be leaving. Take care, everybody. See you guys, inshallah. And please, I might not be able to respond to DMs क्योंकि काफ़ी मेरे पहले से spammed है. So you might, I'm not going to turn off the group. So please go and ask in the group if you have any questions. सही है. Take care, everybody. Allah Hafiz. Bye bye.